across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
There you are. Good afternoon and welcome to Drive Time right here on Talk. I'm Kevin O'Sullivan and I'll be your host for 3 electric hours of news, views and topical debate all the way to 7 o'clock. Get on the show, get on the phone and call me on 03444991000, or you can WhatsApp voice note me on the same number and I promise to play your message out. It is Wednesday, August the 26th. Here's what's coming up. As fears over rising levels of migrant crime escalate, fury mounts over the cover-up of the number of foreign nationals in Britain committing sex offences, murders and other serious felonies. Why won't the government come clean on these statistics that ultimately are surely vital to the safety of the people? Why won't they tell us how many crimes are being committed by foreign nationals? Why won't they give us those statistics? Sounds like a cover-up to me. Sounds like they're embarrassed by these statistics. Let me know what you think about that. 03444991000. Also today, the Sudanese migrant declined asylum in France who came to Britain and very nearly killed his poor female victim after lying in wait for her and launching a frenzied attack with a broken bottle. As this monster begins a 25-year jail sentence for attempted murder, what the hell was he doing in our country? While living at a hostel in Birmingham, he tried to rape a member of staff, and in Leeds, where he was found standing with his trousers round his ankles, police just let him go. How many more migrant men like this are just allowed to roam around causing terror while the authorities just shrug their shoulders? 03444991000. Still with the cops. Why have the British Transport Police issued an appeal for witnesses to a rape on a train without including any kind of description of the suspect? Gee, what could be the reason? Any idea? Let me know. I think I've got my suspicions. I bet you have too. They appeal for witnesses. They've got a suspect. They've got a suspect. They appeal for witnesses, but they put out no description of the suspect. Why are they keeping that a secret? Because it doesn't help the investigation, does it? Let me know. 03444991000. Plus, Burnham showcasing his generosity to Ukraine by handing secret missile tech info to Zelensky has resulted in Putin declaring Britain to be a legitimate wartime target. Shouldn't Andy have been a little more discreet? Has his tough guy boast put the British people in danger? 03444991000. Also on today's action-packed shows, government officials invite Talk's undercover migrant Christian Drogan to a meeting to discuss his discoveries as he became the first ever journalist to cross the channel on a migrant's dinghy. Far-left backbenchers demand that Burnham soaks wealthy pensioners to tackle Labour's soaring public finances crisis. And Andy racks up his anti-Israel narrative by proposing hardline UK sanctions on West Bank settlers. All that. Oh, and lastly, I'm going to put the big question. Why, you know, Harry and Meghan, they came back today. I'm sure you may have noticed. They came into Birmingham Airport so that nobody spotted them. They dodged the media like we care that much. Anyway, Harry has said, I'm coming back and I'm going to go every week. I'm going to go to Archie's rugby matches. So Archie's just a little kid now. So why rugby? You know, our national sport, I'm a big fan of rugby. I enjoy it. It's good sport, you know, and we're pretty good at it. You know, but it's not really our national sport, is it? Our national sport is football. Why is Harry insisting that Archie plays rugby and not football? Is it because rugby is middle class and football is working class? Is this sporting snobbery? You know what they say, rugby is a game for thugs played by gentlemen. Football is a game for gentlemen played by thugs. Is Harry being snobbish about sport? Why can't Archie play our national sport, football? That's the big one later in the show. Let me know what you think. 0344 499 1000. All that and so much more. So don't go anywhere. Stick with me right here, right now, on Talk, the home of free speech and common sense. Let's spend Wednesday afternoon together. Very pleased to welcome to the show for the first 25 minutes or so, author and columnist Jake Wallace-Simons. Welcome, Jake.
Hi, good afternoon.
Well, let's get you first on something that I'm sure would interest you. Andy Burnham, you know, going out of his way to say, oh, the UK are going to rack up, UK's going to put sanctions on Israeli West Bank settlers. You know, this following his early statement soon after he waltzed into number 10, unaffected, unhindered by democracy. He said, well, you know, Starmer got it wrong about October the 7th. You know, we shouldn't have stood... He essentially said we shouldn't have stood foursquare with Israel after those Hamas monsters murdered 1,200 innocent Jewish people. So the direction of travel with Andy Burnham looks to me to be towards that dispiriting Corbynista approach to Israel and Jewish people. I find that disturbing.
Yes, I think that the bigger picture is important here, which is that if you look out at the Middle East, at all the countries in the Middle East, by far the only meaningful democracy is Israel. Now, does that make Israel perfect? No, it doesn't. I mean, no democracy is perfect. Our own democracy is far from perfect. We all know our history of ups and downs and lights and shadows. But if you look out at the Middle East, it's full of autocracies, corrupt dictatorships, and sort of plastic democracies that are secretly anything of the sort, whereas Israel is a democracy. It's the only place in the world that protects minorities, women's rights. You know, it's the only place in the region that's safe for Christians, for example, notwithstanding some aggro on the West Bank. And yet, Andy Burnham, I almost said Keir Starmer, they're so indistinguishable these days.
They are.
Andy Burnham seems determined to pour the focus on Israel's flaws rather than addressing the far worse flaws of the Palestinian side, the other countries in the region, or elsewhere in Africa and the world with far greater humanitarian crises and so on. And the reason, of course, is that it appeals to his backbenchers, to Islamists in his constituencies, general Muslims in his constituencies as well, who are almost to a man against Israel these days, sadly, to the progressive left. He is appealing to them for their support while the party continues to hemorrhage support to the Greens. So in a way, he's throwing, you know, our moral compass, Britain's strategic interests. We have a lot of shared interests with Israel, not least tech and weapons technology as well, throwing all that under the bus because he wants to keep the Muslim vote and the progressive vote on side. I mean, that's where we've reached in 2026.
Absolutely. Conversely, Donald Trump across the Atlantic is set to declare that anyone with any connection at all to Palestine action will not be allowed into America. He will ban anybody with any kind of connection to Palestine action from entering the United States. So there is a world leader who knows how to be a friend to its ally, his ally Israel.
Yeah, I mean, I think that that's really a lesson for us here in Britain. We're so tolerant of extremists. I mean, I'm still reeling from the fact that when the Ayatollah was killed in his compound in Tehran a few months ago in February, the Ayatollah's compound or office in London was still open for business and continues to be open for business today. The Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps is still not properly banned in Britain. It still acts almost with impunity. The Muslim Brotherhood, banned throughout the Arab world because they know that they are extremists seeking to subvert their own states, not banned in Britain, again, functions with impunity, radicalizing our Muslim minorities. We are just completely tolerant when it comes to the the intolerance of extremism. And then we wonder why there's so many extreme views spreading throughout Britain. We need to get tough with these people, as Donald Trump apparently has with Palestine Action in America. We need to start saying zero tolerance. If you're an extremist, if you're a jihadist, if you're seeking to subvert our way of life, you're seeking to use our own freedoms to overturn the very freedoms that we've built over so many generations and centuries, then you're not welcome here. You're going to be imprisoned, restricted, marginalized, deported, because we want to be free of that kind of pernicious influence, not just for the sake of mainstream Britons, but also for the Muslim minority, which needs to be free from the bullying of extremists in order to integrate properly into the mainstream.
Absolutely. Here's to Donald Trump, I say, on that one. Let's talk about Labour peer Lord Seeker. He has criticised Reform UK's policy, which is to evict foreign-born nationals from social houses, from council housing, to make sure that all social housing goes to Brits. You know, whatever you think about that policy, some people will agree with it, others won't. That isn't really the point. Lord Seeker, a Labour peer, has chosen to criticise it in the most vehement terms. And I think the language he's used is just inappropriate, to say the least. He said, Reform says... this was a Twitter post. Reform says it would put foreign-born UK citizens lower on social housing lists. Couples with a foreign-born partner will face discrimination. Children of UK citizens will be denied social housing because one parent was born abroad. He's talking about Reform here. He says, they don't hide racism. Reform is building the next road to Auschwitz. Now, look, he's got every right not to agree with Reform's policy, but to say they're building the next road to Auschwitz, I think this Nazi connection, these Labour people who just, anybody who happens to be slightly right of centre, they start calling a Nazi or a fascist building the road to Auschwitz. They've got to stop using this kind of language, haven't they?
Yeah, I mean, to say that it's disrespectful or insulting to the millions of victims of the Nazis and to their families would be an understatement. It's so debased now, isn't it? Auschwitz has become a cliche. It's become a kitsch sort of symbol in trashy novels, in sort of syrupy films,
yeah.
And it's used in politics so much to score cheap points over issues like this, which don't hold a candle to the persecution that took place of Jews during the Second World War. You know, the Nazi genocide, which was the first to be called a genocide, that's why the word genocide was invented, was an attempt to liquidate an entire race of people, liquidate them, liquidate their memory, liquidate their humour, their culture, their buildings, their traditions, their mores and their genes, herding them, you know, marginalising them from daily life, taking away all of their ways of engaging in society, herding them into camps and murdering them using all the tools of mechanised slaughter available to the technological powers at the time. I mean, that is, you know, those deaths weren't just people vanishing into thin air. They were brutal, grisly deaths. They were bodies that had fluids that suffered, you know, fingernails broken through people clawing to try to get out of the gas chambers to save their lives and failing. Piles of corpses, the stench. You know, this was murder. This was foul barbarism and atrocious murder, the worst crime that the modern world and humanity in the whole has ever conducted. And to use that term to score a petty political point against reform in such a inappropriate, I suppose, if I can use that word, manner is deplorable and depraved, and he should hang his head in shame.
Yeah, absolutely. By all means, disagree with Reform's policies. By all means, criticise them vehemently, vigorously, but don't start citing Auschwitz and the Nazis. It's pathetic, inappropriate and insulting to the poor people who died in those horrific concentration camps. So get real, Lord Seeker. Let's talk about St Gary Lineker, shall we? I had Gideon Falter on yesterday from the campaign against anti-Semitism about Gary Lineker's latest sharing of a tweet, another tweet, you know, anti-Israel, and him saying that this was that To be a Zionist, which I consider myself to be, is similar to being a Nazi. So he conflated Zionism, oddly, with Nazism. I don't know where the hell he gets that from, but he shared this tweet, so he did it again. I think he enjoys it. I think he enjoys baiting the Jews and the right-wing people, or people who stand with Israel. I think he enjoys it. Anyway, today he's got a big interview in a few of the papers talking about the BBC, saying that the BBC always tolerated his humanitarian tweets, he calls them. But they changed the goalpost and then he had to leave. Let's not forget, this gets glossed over too much. That guy, I think it was last May, was forced to leave the BBC in disgrace because he liked and shared a tweet that used the rat emoji, the ancient trope, to dehumanise Jews. That's what he did. So he left the BBC in disgrace. Let's get that right. He's still doing it. He just retweeted or he shared this tweet about Zionism and Nazism, and now he's bleating, saying, well, the BBC changed the goalpost, that's why I had to leave. But he does have a strange obsession with getting involved in tweets that are frankly anti-Semitic. What is wrong with him? What's his problem with the Jewish people, do you think?
Well, he had no problem when October the 7th happened. On October the 7th, he only tweeted once, and he tweeted "Super Spurs are top of the league." His interest in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict only emerged when Israel began to fight back against the same jihadis that would want all of us dead if they could. Now, I think we can't really escape from the shadow of Nazism here. Certainly, comparing Jews to rats was a standard Nazi trope, the one that Gary Lineker shared on Instagram that got him fired from the BBC. And also his casting of his tweets that are Israelophobic as somehow humanitarian, again, in some ways reminds me of the Nazis, because the Nazis convinced themselves that they were only extinguishing the Jews, liquidating the Jews, out of a humanitarian impulse for the good of future generations, because the Jews were so evil that for the good of the world, they had to do the messy job of exterminating them as you would exterminate vermin. And so anti-Semites have always had this way of saying, look, it's not me that's bad, it's just that the Jews are so bad that we have no choice but to focus on them, marginalize them, oppress them, and eventually destroy them entirely. Now, Zionism, which he compares, inverts and compares to Nazism. I mean, if you look at Jewish history, 586 BC, the Jews were expelled for the first time from Israel. And famously, that psalm, by the rivers of Babylon, we wept and remembered Zion. That was when Jews first began to have a yearning for a return to their homeland. I mean, that was more than 1,500 years ago. It's been consistent since then. The Jews have always wanted to return to their homeland. Some have. There's been a consistent Jewish presence there for many, many centuries. And so to then say Zionism is really just the latest label for this Jewishness, this profound Jewishness. And so to say that Zionism is Nazism or is racism or is beyond the pale or is settler colonialism is what you're really saying is that Jews are evil and have been for 1,500 or more years. That really is what Gary Lineker, whether he knows it or not, is articulating. And to me, it is deep, deep anti-Semitism.
Yeah, it is, and you quite often make the mistake of telling people that I'm a Zionist, and they say, "How could you admit to that? How could you admit to that appalling crime?" I said, "Well, Zionism is the belief that the Jewish people deserve their own nation. I mean, it's not Nazi. It's a perfectly reasonable standpoint. But the Linekers of this world have managed to turn, in the minds of too many people, the term Zionist into something evil. It's very, very strange. Let me ask you a very last political question quickly, if you don't mind, Jake. What's your feeling about the direction of travel with this guy Burnham politically? I mean, I think he's an undercover Marxist, undercover communist. He really is extremely left-wing, but he is now being urged by his even more left-wing backbenchers to tax the hell out of wealthy pensioners, to soak wealthy pensioners, and also to put massive great levies on expensive houses in the south. This would be depressing and dreary if it wasn't such a real threat with this guy. But we are now, it seems to me, being subjected to good old-fashioned communist, Marxist nonsense, class warfare nonsense from these people. But I call it nonsense, but it's probably going to happen. Worrying, I think.
Yes, I mean, he, like Keir Starmer, he seems not to have any values at all that he's willing to stand up for. He's really trying to manage his party, manage his left-wing backbenchers with the view to try to hold on to power as much as he can. But underpinning all of it is a complete reluctance or refusal to cut that blasted welfare budget, which is soaking up all of our public spending, so that we can cut taxes and get this country moving. It's not rocket science. It's been proven again and again, whenever it's been tried, that cutting public spending and cutting taxes leads to innovation and an economic boom. We're seeing it in America. We're seeing it wherever it's been tried in the world. And yet Labour is just unable to do so, even though you and I and viewers at home all know that there are a great many people on welfare who should not be on welfare, whether they're young people claiming anxiety or whatever it is. The welfare budget is at historic proportions. It's way bigger than it should be, and it's corroding British work attitudes towards work for generations. You know, that is where the reforms need to be carried out. And yet Andy Burnham, like Keir Starmer before him, is a Labour animal, cannot cut benefits even if he wanted to, due to his power of his backbenchers and unions, and therefore is going to continue to soak not the rich, but the middle classes. Anybody with any money, he wants it to give it to people who aren't working.
Yeah, the welfare bill is £350 billion a year and rising. And just recently, Andy Burnham said ominously, I'm against crude cuts to the welfare bill. What he actually means there is he's against any cuts to the welfare bill, and the rest of us are going to have to suffer because of that. Jake, great to have you on the show as always. Thank you so much. Jake Wallace-Simon is a brilliant author and columnist. Let's go to break. I'm going to be joined by Peter Blexley, former Met Police detective. After these messages, we're going to talk about what looks like a clear government plan to cover up, a continuing cover-up of foreign national crime statistics. So we don't know exactly how many sex offences, rapes, murders, serious felonies are being committed by migrants and foreign nationals. Why would they keep that a secret? Gee, is it that they think that the statistics might be a bit embarrassing for them? Surely not. We'll talk to Peter about that after the break. Stay where you are.
Go to Calais train station?
Yes, train station.
Okay. I was dipping. It was brutal. Come on, guys! Ready, full fast, go on! And we're on the way over to UK.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. I want to talk to Peter Blacks, the former Met Police detective, is in the studio. Peter, I want to talk to you about what victims of crime say is an ongoing cover-up by the government about the truth of the statistics of how many serious crimes, particularly sex crimes, crimes of violence, murder, are committed by foreign nationals. We need to talk about that in a second, but the story's just broken. Let me get your take on this. The Sun breaking this story. Protesters who fly the Union flag, Union Jack to you and me, from lampposts could face 2 years in jail after Birmingham Council applied for an injunction, making them the largest local authority to do so. Comes after Oxfordshire County Council won a similar case last month. These councils are going to court to arrest and criminalise patriots who put flags on lampposts. What is it that Birmingham Council, Oxfordshire County Council, what is it that these town hall tyrants hate so much about our flags?
These councils are clearly enemies of the patriotic British people. Take a walk down Whitehall. You'll have to get some kind of distance. You'll see the Union flag, the Union Jack, proudly flying from the top of the Ministry of Defence, from the top of the Houses of Parliament, most often from Buckingham Palace, and all these other significant landmarks in this once great nation. It's our national flag. It displays the unity of Scotland, Wales, England, Northern Ireland, the United Kingdom, Britain. And people who want to fly it, I think, should be allowed to. Yeah. OK, so they're stretching it if they shin their way up a lamppost which might be council property, but to imprison somebody for it, to send somebody to jail when people like Hugh Edwards don't go to prison, do me a favour, it's absolutely scandalous.
Yeah, why do they hate our flag so much? And yeah, as Pete said, this is criminalising patriots who want to fly either the Union Jack, Union flag, or the St George's Cross. Criminalising them. They'll go to court. They might get 2 years in jail for flying our national flag. If that is not an indication of just how sick this nation has become, I don't know what is. Let me know what you think about that. 03444991000. Now, let's talk about this migrant crime, foreign national crime. Yeah. The Centre for Migration Control, Robert Bates will be on the show a bit later. He's their research director. They asked the Ministry of Justice for a total number of convictions broken down by nationality and offences for the 7 years, past 7 years under Freedom of Information laws. The Ministry of Justice refused, saying that to gather that data would be too expensive. And publishing the information could lead to the identification of individuals in breach of their rights to privacy. The information watchdog, the information commissioner, rejected the MOJ's stance and said, no, this information should be made publicly available. But it hasn't been. They won't tell us how many foreign nationals are committing crimes and what kind of crimes they're committing. I think that the retention of that information, the making secret of that information, puts women, children, in fact, everyone in this country at risk.
The police have all this data, OK? They collect it. When people are arrested and they're charged, all this data about asylum situation, whether they're a refugee, asylum seeker, their migrant status, nationality, all of this information is recorded by the police. It is all there and it should be publicly available. But the reason it's not, even after the Information Commissioner said, yes, release the data, is because David Lammy, remember him? Yeah. He started the legal proceedings.
Unfortunately, I do, yeah.
Yes, to block the publication of that data. And now his successor as Justice Secretary, Norris, he is doing exactly the same. Norris is fighting against the will of the people, because I'm sure it's not just the Centre for Migration Control that want this data released. It's the public, the British people. And this pathetic politician, Alex Norris, the Justice Secretary, is blocking that release. And they're using our money to take it to the courts to try and keep this information suppressed. They are behaving like the Stasi of East Germany many decades ago. It's that level of suppression of autocracy. It's appalling.
Yeah, so just get that through your heads, folks. The government, the Ministry of Defence, is going to great lengths to make sure that we do not know how many crimes are being committed by foreign nationals, migrants, asylum seekers, other foreigners, and what kind of crimes they are committing. So what the Centre for Migration Control wanted in a Freedom of Information request was to break it all down. How many foreigners, or how many crimes are they committing? What kind of crimes? Well, you know, give us the... And they won't give them to anyone, particularly the Centre for Migration Control, because they're saying, well, that's a bit too expensive and it might affect the privacy of criminals. Great. What about the safety of the people of this country? Let me know what you think about that. I think it's a really, really serious issue. They won't tell us the number of crimes being committed by foreign nationals and the type of crimes they are committing. So over the past 7 years, I think it's very important that we find that out, and it's very important that we urge the government to stop playing secret squirrel with that crucial information. Knowing those statistics is crucial to the safety of the people in this country. We cannot go on like this. One last question to ask you, Pete, another story. This concerns the British Transport Police. Very harrowing story. Poor girl, 13-year-old girl, was travelling on a train from Coventry to Wolverhampton in the evening, and she went into the loo of the train. He forced her way in, followed her up the train apparently, forced her way in, and not to put too fine a point on it, raped her. Very seriously raped this girl. Now, the British Transport Police are appealing for witnesses. Quite right too. They want to, you know, they've got the suspect. They're appealing for witnesses. Does anyone want to see this? Yeah. We have been in touch with them, so you're asking for witnesses to it, but you haven't given us a description of the suspect. You know, so could you do that? Because that'll help your investigation, won't it? Anyway, they won't do that. Why won't they tell? Well, they know what he looks like, you know, or what the suspect looks like. Why won't they issue a description in order to get witnesses? If they don't do that, that's going to affect the investigation, isn't it?
It cuts across the other story about the crime data that won't be released because the government, the establishment, are afraid of the truth. But with regards to this revolting assault on this child on the train, the police have only said that the man who's from Staffordshire...
Oh, yeah, that one.
That's it, has been released on bail.
By the way, that's only after we at Talk asked them. That's all they told us.
Absolutely, right, OK. They said the man from Staffordshire released with strict bail conditions. Well, let me tell you this. My mate has got a Staffordshire Bull Terrier, and it's never been a Staffordshire, if you get my drift.
Exactly right. I mean, you know, you know what we're talking about here. Let's just lay it out there. What we suspect, because this happens time and time again, is that the police do not want to put out a description of this guy because potentially, possibly, this is only speculation, he might be, shall we say, of Middle Eastern appearance, of migrant-type appearance. But, you know, the police, you know, trying to, you know, keep this information under their hats, it affects the investigation.
Of course it does. They put out the times of the train, right, and the destination and where it left from, and they're saying, were you on this train? Did you see anything? If they put a picture of the suspect up, that might very much help people's memory, jog people's memory. And only yesterday, Sussex Police released the pictures of 2 men who are wanted in connection with a sexual assault. It helps people, it jogs their memories. They go, ah, yes, I saw that bloke on the train. Ah, yes, I saw those men on the beach. These are very good prompts to help people with their recollections and therefore vital information that might help solve crimes.
Yes, and telling us that the man is from Staffordshire, I don't think will help in the search for witnesses, will it, to say the least? The other thing about this is, you know, what we're suspecting is that the police, in the manner of these instances, they don't like telling us, oh, well, it looks like it's a foreigner, it looks like it's a migrant, it could be from the Middle East or, you know, sub-Saharan Africa. They don't like that for some reason. It's not very woke. But, you know, we don't know this. So, by them keeping it a secret, it will give rise to mass speculation that it was a migrant.
Of course it will. And imagine you were on that train and you're going, well, did I see something? I'm not quite sure because no description or photograph of the suspect has been released. It's actually detrimental to the investigation. It's negligent. It's cowardice. It cuts across that other story from the Ministry of Justice. They do not want us to know the truth about these matters because they, the government, and all their acolytes cannot handle the truth. And do you know what? Do you remember when we had pathetic politicians bending on a knee or holding a sign saying, refugees welcome?
Say it loud, say it clear. Refugees are welcome here.
Yeah. Do you know what?
No, they're not.
There's been so many cases that they might as well have held up signs saying rapists welcome.
Yeah, exactly right. And I've got one, before we go to break, Pete, you know, I've got an example of this. Do you remember that horrific attack in a Southport dance floor? Those poor 3 kids brutally killed, others brutally injured. They arrested the suspect, one Axel Rudakabana, who we were told was a 12-year-old choir boy from Cardiff.
Yeah, you'd imagine him, wouldn't you? Perhaps carrying a cross with a ruff around his neck, you know what I mean? Yeah. Walking into the cathedral on a Sunday morning. Utter drivel.
Is that deliberately deceptive?
Of course it is.
Yeah, it's to make sure that we don't all go, I bet it was a migrant.
Yeah.
Well, by keeping it a secret, people do go, I bet it was a migrant. They need to be more transparent with these cases, don't you think? 0344 499 1000. Let's go to break. When we come back, we're going to talk about a particularly egregious, real asylum seeker crime. We know this was committed by an asylum seeker, a migrant. He's currently, he's just been sentenced to 25 years for the most horrendous attack on a poor female victim. And the truth is, folks, he should never have been in this country. It's an absolute disgrace. You won't believe this story. And we'll bring it to you next. Stay tuned.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. I'm still with a former Met Police detective, Peter Blexley. This is one of, you know, we were talking earlier about crime statistics, how many crimes are committed by foreign nationals, migrants, asylum seekers, etc. And the fact, the disturbing, rather sinister fact that the government won't tell us. They're keeping this a secret. You can only speculate why, can't you? Probably they don't like the look of the statistics, and I'm sure we wouldn't either. But let's talk about one such crime. This is the story, Pete, of Ibrahim al-Bashir, 34 years old. His story is he's a Sudanese migrant who pitched up in France. He was declined asylum in France, so he was told he couldn't live there. With the help of people smugglers, I'm assuming on a small boat, but I'm not entirely sure, this guy made his way to Britain. And has now been, only yesterday in Leeds Crown Court, was jailed for 25 years for this crime. In Leeds, he lay in wait for his female victim, who he didn't know. He was just laying in wait for someone. Along came this poor woman who'd been for dinner with friends, just making her way home. This guy, Ibrahim al-Bashir, leapt out at her with a broken bottle and slashed her 30 times. He's been done for attempted murder, but his backstory beggars belief. So he comes from France illegally. One of his first places where he stayed was a hostel in Birmingham. There, he tried to rape or sexually assault one of the female workers and just seems to have disappeared after that, never to be heard of again, at least by the Birmingham hostel people. Later, he pitched up in Leeds. He'd been kicked off a train, funnily enough, because he hadn't bought a ticket. The police found him one night standing in the middle of the street with his trousers around his ankles. They suspected he'd been taking drugs. No drugs were found on him, so they said, well, mind how you go, and they let him go. He had no right to be in this country, so they let him go, and then it led, that was in 2024, and sometime later, he attempted to kill this woman with a broken bottle. If the police had done their job, in Birmingham and later in Leeds with the trouser incident, they would have sort of brought him in, discovered he was an illegal migrant, and perhaps got him off the streets. This is disgraceful.
Not only are there police failings, but there's others rampantly obvious here. He was denied asylum in France.
Yeah.
So the first person to have dealt with this monster in the UK should have locked him up and booted him out of the country, back to Sudan. I don't care if they had to fly over that war-torn country and parachute him in. He should not have been in the UK, period, end of. And this was in 2024, before the general election. So this one is on the lamentable Tories as well.
Yep.
We know that they've let this country down dreadfully, and we know that this current Labour government are letting the country down dreadfully. Picture the scene. Let's rewind, if we may, a few decades to the late 1970s or the early 1980s, when I was a uniformed police officer. If I was called to somebody, or I found somebody in the street clearly under the influence of something and with their trousers round their ankles, the last thing that would have been written about that matter would have been no further action. Of course there would have been action. He'd have been coming in the back of the van after he'd pulled his trousers up, and he'd be coming down a nick with me, and we'd be getting to the bottom of matters, whatsoever that may be, because he was clearly a danger to the public. How can you just tell somebody to pull their trousers up, search them, and let them go on their way? There is something dreadfully, dreadfully wrong with him. And you know what? It wouldn't have surprised me with some of the policing this day and age if they didn't take him down to a blooming Primark or some equivalent and buy him a belt. That's how blooming useless some of this policing is today.
It's unbelievable, and it's only because this poor woman, 30 times he slashed her with a broken bottle. Incredibly, her injuries, by sheer luck, were quite minor, but she's mentally scarred, really mentally scarred, as you can imagine. She was letting out such blood-curdling screams that members of the public heard it, and one particular guy turned up, and Mr. al-Bashir got what he deserved. He beat the hell out of him, beat him unconscious, so here's to that guy. But what an absolute mess. What an absolute disaster. What is going on? Why did the police let him go? It's just ridiculous. If he's refused asylum in France, He comes in illegally. What, you know, they should know this. Why is he still here? This is a story that's going on all over the place. And also, of course, they call him mentally ill. You know, oh, it's you know, it's not as bad as you think because he was mentally ill. I don't care. He shouldn't have been in this country. Before we go on, Pete, I've just got to break this breaking news. Sad times. Legendary English actor and Rocky Horror Picture Show star Tim Curry has died aged 80. I interviewed him a couple of times over in Los Angeles. Very, very nice guy. So poor old Dolly Parton yesterday and Tim Curry today. Both of them were aged 80. We'll bring you some more details on that later in the show. But Peter, if I can come back to you about our Sudanese migrant friend. But this is, you know, the police ought to be told, if it's some foreigner, then try and check on their immigration status.
Of course. When you've taken him down the neck because he was walking around the street with his trousers down. It's obvious you arrest somebody like that. But let's just rewind a few minutes, if we may, to the very first story that you and I started talking about, the suppression of that information. This is exactly the kind of information that Alex Norris, the Justice Secretary, and David Lammy before him does not want you, me and the audience to know.
Yeah, they're trying to keep this stuff secret. We're going to come back to this story later in the show because Rob Bates from the
Centre for Migration Control.
It. Thank you very much, Centre for Migration Control. He'll be in the studio. We'll talk about his ongoing battle to get this information revealed. You have a right to know, folks. We all do. The government doesn't want us to know, and, you know, we all know why, because if we find out what these statistics are, we are going to be shocked and dismayed. This country is not being run properly. It's not being policed properly, and that is a disaster. Let's go to break. And when we come back, we're going to talk about the strange case of Anna Turley. She is the government minister for immigration and security, border security. She posted on Facebook a tribute to those scumbag joyriders who killed those two police officers. It was so sad, so sad. Well, you know, what about the police officers? Is that very respectful to them? There's a lot of disquiet about what Miss Turley has done, paying tribute to the little scumbags who drove the wrong way down the A66 playing a TikTok game, resulting in the death of two young police officers. And we have a Labour minister paying tribute to the lowlifes who did that. That's got to be wrong. We'll talk about that next. Stay tuned.
Go to Calais train station?
Yes, train station.
Okay. I was gaping. It was brutal. Come on, come on! Ready, full fence, go on! And they're on the way over to UK.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Let's talk about Anna Turley. She is the Labour Minister for Border Security, Immigration and Border Security. So she's right at the heart of the triumphant government operation to stop the boats. A woman of great talent, obviously. She posted on Facebook a tribute to those scumbag kids who killed those two coppers on the A66. Now, playing a TikTok game, a very dangerous TikTok game. Now, the Tory MP, Nick Timothy, he says, well, you know, I know this is the time of emoting and we like to empathise, but doesn't this Labour minister realise that paying tribute to the scumbags rather disrespects the two fine young police officers they killed? It's an extraordinary thing for her to do. She's got very angry about this. I can't believe I'm being criticised for this. Well, believe it, Anna. Let's talk to former Labour MP, now Reform UK, Simon Danczuk. Yeah, I mean, you know, all these politicians, they love to emote, they love to prove how empathetic they are and all that. But she didn't really think this through. She says Cleveland police asked her to post this tribute to these little killers, these vile little thugs. I'm not sure I believe that. But what does she think she's playing at, Simon?
It's a very good question. She's a Home Office minister. That's the department that has responsibility for policing in Great Britain. And we have her paying her respects to the 5 killers of 2 police officers. I mean, you couldn't make it up. It's beyond disrespectful. Just imagine what the families of those 2 police officers think of this Labour government and this Labour Home Office minister. It's quite appalling, really. She does claim that Cleveland police asked her to pay respects to all 7 that got killed, though there's some dispute over this. Nick Timothy, as you mentioned, he's Conservative Shadow Justice Secretary. He's asked her to provide evidence of Cleveland police actually asking her to have done that. So there's some dispute about it.
Well, can I just say, sorry to interrupt, Simon, but we've contacted Cleveland's police, and I think quite significantly they haven't responded. Straight question. Anna Turley says you asked her to post this tribute to the killers on Facebook. I can't imagine in a month of Sundays a proper police force would have done that. I don't believe they've done that. So we haven't had a response from them. But Anna Turley wrote to Nick Timothy saying, you have sought to attribute to me moral equivalence or judgments about what you sought found in my post. The identities of the drivers of the Passat were not even public when I paid my respects and posted this. I did not know who had died at that point. Well, why did you post it? Why not wait? Why not be a sensible politician and wait until you get the details before you start spewing your emotion all over Facebook? She's made a big mistake here. She knows it, doesn't she?
I think she's made a very big mistake. She does say in that statement that she did know that 2 of those killed were police officers. I mean, it's quite obvious what had happened, isn't it? Any sensible person could work out, calculate what had gone terribly wrong in that situation. And if she can't find out as Home Office Minister before she goes down there to pay her respects to the 7 people, if she can't find out, then there's something sadly wrong. But the bigger point here, I think, and it's quite significant, and I think the public have caught on to this, Labour are always on the side of the perpetrator, rarely on the side of the victim. You know, when can you recall a Labour MP or minister coming out to say how sad they are and to pay the respects in terms of a victim of one of the illegal immigrants that's attacked them or killed them? I can't recall that. Look how they've dealt with the PC Harper situation. They've not managed to ensure that his killers are remaining in prison. We're still waiting for a decision on that. Look at the Rochdale rape gang leader, Shabir Ahmed. Burnham said he would be out of the country, he would be deported. He hasn't been deported yet. They're always on the side, Labour are always on the side of the perpetrator.
Yeah.
And this is another instance.
Yeah, they'll think that these scumbags who killed those two poor coppers, are victims of a society that hasn't given them any opportunities. They're always sympathetic towards this kind of person. So she's the Redcar MP, and all of the victims of this terrible crash, including the coppers, lived in her constituency. So, she's got skin in the game. But this is what she posted on Facebook on Sunday morning. This morning I went down to South Bank to lay flowers and pay my respects on behalf of our whole community to the 7 people whose lives were so tragically cut short yesterday. There really are no words for the heartbreak their families and loved ones must be feeling today. May you all rest in peace. I don't particularly want those scumbags who killed those coppers playing a TikTok game to rest in peace. Thank you, Miss Turley. Do you?
Exactly correct, and I think this will roll on. And Nick Timothy, the Conservative shadow minister that you mentioned, he is like a dog with a bone on these issues that he takes up, and I think he will carry on putting the pressure on her. I think she's vulnerable to having to step down over this. In actual fact.
Yeah, so Nick Timothy, he replied, Anna Turley is Home Office Minister. She wants to pay her respects to the 7 people whose lives were tragically cut short in the Middlesbrough crash this weekend. I can't be the only one for whom this statement jars. We may live in an age of emoting, but we should be able to see the difference between right and wrong. Nobody wanted Ms Turley's sympathy for the scumbags who killed those 2 fine young coppers. Nobody has sympathy for them. She's just got this horrendously wrong, and she should know better as an MP and a minister.
She's a former chairman of the Labour Party when
that figures.
When Keir Starmer was Prime Minister. So she has some experience, and she's been in and out of Parliament a couple of times as well. So you would have thought she would have known better than to do this. And she's certainly been badly advised by people in the Home Office. I think she's on a real sticky wicket here. I'd be surprised if she's here by the end of the week, or certainly by Prime Minister's questions next week.
Very interesting. So she may lose her job over this. Let's watch this with interest. Great to have you on the show, as always, Simon. Thank you very much, Simon Danjit there. Next up, after the news, it's James Price, former government special advisor. Stay tuned.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. For the next 20-25 minutes or so, let's spend them in the excellent company of former government special advisor for the Tories, I should stress, James Price. Welcome, James.
Hello, mate. Good to be back with you.
Always a pleasure to have you on the show. Let me ask you about this. Yesterday, you probably noticed we made a bit of a song and dance of it, and well we might. We released the incredible film by the undercover migrant Christian Drogan, working in league with our international editor Isabel Oakeshott. Christian has become the first ever journalist to cross the channel on an illegal migrant's dinghy. Now, this is an important bit of journalistic work. It really, really is. He found out some very interesting elements to what goes on in these voyages. Yes, it was dangerous, but sometimes journalism is dangerous. It's called Invading Britain, the Undercover Migrant Returns. It's available, everybody, on YouTube if you want to watch it now. It goes on for just over an hour, full of extraordinary revelations. Now, this was a good bit of journalism, James. The Home Office immediately denounced Christian's investigation as reckless and dangerous. So he's on Talk yesterday, and one of my colleagues, I didn't put this to him, but one of my colleagues said, well, the Home Office said that your investigation, you getting onto this dinghy, was reckless and dangerous. You shouldn't have done it. And he goes, well, that's funny because the government has just invited me to a meeting to discuss my findings, my discoveries. So, you know, with one hand they call him reckless and dangerous, and with the other they say, well, could you come in and tell us what you found out? Quite a sort of twin-pronged response from our authorities.
Yeah, I mean, this absolutely extraordinary piece of journalism. The footage is crazy. It's a great idea, by the way, them coming up with this as well, if it was him or the team that came up with this brilliant idea to do it, this kind of gonzo journalism that the old school Hunter Thompsons and someone will be proud of this. But I think your point on the government response is really interesting, because the government's response is kind of schizophrenic as well, right? It says we're going to smash the gangs, and then it does absolutely everything it can to help the gangs by saying to people, look, we're not going to deport you, even maybe if, you know, despite what the pamphlets last week said, even if you go around raping people, it only might affect your asylum claim. Absolutely extraordinary scenes from the government. So maybe Christian could actually tell them a few things, like maybe that you could tell, what was it, Darren Jones, who was the one of the senior people in Starmer's government, who Burnham has perhaps wisely shoved to the backbenches, who genuinely seemed to think when he was asked about this that the vast majority of people coming over were little children.
On Question Time, he told millions of BBC viewers that the vast majority of these migrants fleeing war and torture. What war and torture is there in France? Remind me, Darren. He said they're all women, children and babies.
Whereas the truth, of course, is it's more than 90% are young, fighting age
Exactly.
men. Let's just recall this. And they do often put one woman, perhaps, on every boat, because it makes it more likely that the charities or the British services will come along and rescue that boat. Actually, at least there's a little bit of gallantry left, however misplaced it may be. So the government maybe actually could learn a thing or two from your amazing journalist doing this report, because they clearly haven't got a Scooby what's actually going on.
Exactly right. So congratulations to Christian Drogan and Isabel Oakeshott, who was the mastermind of the operation. It's extraordinary, folks. So if you haven't seen it, if you head to either Talk's YouTube channel, you'll find it there, or easier way, if you just go to YouTube, type into the search function undercover migrant. It's called Invading Britain, the Undercover Migrant Returns. And there's a QR code on the screen if you're watching on TV now, which will take you there. Highly recommend it. You can watch it anytime you like. But something like 250,000 people already have It is, as we say, flying, not surprisingly. This was the first ever journalist to cross the channel in one of these dinghies. Let's move on, James. Let's do this one. Energy bills will soar by at least £260 over the next decade, in fact by 2030 it is thought, due to Ed Miliband's and his successors' ongoing net zero zealotry. Why do these Labour politicians, why does Andy Burnham, this government, assume that we're OK with this? You know, what do they think we are? Stupid? I mean, do they think we haven't noticed that this madman, this lunatic Ed Miliband, you know, when he was Nut Zero Secretary, has taken the economy to the brink of bankruptcy, has given us the highest, the largest energy bills in the Western world by a long chalk, something like 5 times more expensive than energy bills in the United States. Do they think we haven't noticed? Do they think that we don't know that this terrible predicament that we're in is all down to their ludicrous ideological zealotry? Do they think we don't know that?
No, but I think that this gets to the heart of what's wrong with so much inside the British state at the moment, that they do know, and either in the case of Ed Miliband, he's obviously just a mad zealot who really is excited probably for his career after Parliament, where he will fly around on all the private jets that he hates so much, going and speaking at conferences in beautiful resorts that he pretends to dislike so much, lecturing the rest of us about how you're going to have to eat bugs and give up on your EasyJet trips and all the rest of it. But the vast majority of people, they do actually realise how terrible our energy policy has been for a few decades now. They do understand this, but the politicians don't have the ability, even though it's in their best interests, to try to get re-elected. And the way that you do that is by improving the economy and the cost of living, and the way you do that is by bringing down those energy bills almost ahead of anything else. They don't do it because the few mad people at the dinner parties that they still get invited to will look down their noses at them. And that's the kind of crazy situation you've got now, where even the impending threat of losing their seats is not enough to get these people to divert course. If that's not a weird cult, I don't know what is.
Yeah, we know it's their fault. It's just unbelievable that they continue down this dark alley. Listen, Andy Burnham's been out and about today, James, and unusually today he hasn't been to a bus garage. He may have popped into one on the way to Sainsbury's, but he actually went to Sainsbury's with John Healey. A lot of people in the office saying John Healey really does look like... so I got the wrong name. It's Pat McFadden. And Pat McFadden really does sort of look like a Sainsbury's worker. I don't know what that means. But here is Andy Burnham speaking about energy bills while he was on his trip to Sainsbury's this morning.
It's difficult for people, and I recognise that, but it's why within days of taking office I announced that we would remove VAT off electricity bills to give people that little bit of help. That kicks in from October. We know the price cap will have an impact, but it is what we can do right now. And we'll continue to look as we go forward at how we get energy prices down in the long term, and that's what we need to do too.
Crazy Ed's successor as Secretary of State for Energy Security and Net Zero is Miatta Farnborough. She's one of those serious socialists who sends all of her children to very expensive private schools. She chipped in with her views about energy bills.
But let me come to the fundamentals of it. We are very clear that the climate transition and climate change is happening now. I think for people, and there are people in other parties that are very sceptical about this, I say look at the droughts, look at the wildfires, speak to the firefighters. Climate change is here. The thing that the experts told us about, extreme weather, that is happening, which is why we, as a Labour government, both past and present, are incredibly proud of our record on climate change. That's not about to change. We've got to act to make sure that we're mitigating the impacts of climate change, and things like the energy transition play a part in that, but we've also got to make sure that we're adapting so that our communities are far more resilient.
What a load of claptrap. She was actually asked, is there anything the government can do about our soaring energy bills, and went off on that diatribe about how proud they are about their record on climate change. Do they not know that the people of this country are tearing their hair out about this absolute rubbish, this green claptrap. We don't want to know. We want lower bills. Oh, Andy Burnham, that's why I've taken the VAT off energy bills. No, here's an idea, Andy. Start drilling your head off in the North Sea. Start fracking and stop all of this net zero nonsense. That will give us nice, low energy bills. Forget your VAT, forget your climate change record. Give us low energy bills. That's what we want.
I'm in danger of doing an injury in my neck here and nodding so aggressively with you, Kev. I'm like the Churchill nodding dog in the back of a car. Oh, yes, is all I can say to all of those policy prescriptions. You're exactly right. And, of course, we haven't been doing fracking for a very long time, despite the fact that for the Americans, this has massively reduced their energy bills to the point where America is now totally energy independent. In fact, America is a net energy exporter.
And we're buying it. We're buying their fracked energy. Unbelievable.
Exactly right. It's massively helped us during the energy shock from the Ukraine war and now the Iran war as well. God bless America, as always, for doing this for us. But it is under our feet in the ground. And there's a lot of evidence that the Russians were paying idiot green parties across Europe, especially in Germany and in Britain as well, I suspect, to oppose this stuff in the same way that our enemies, the Chinese Communist Party and the Russians and the Iranians, pump out all this disinformation about data centers, which don't use up very much water, by the way, compared to anything else, frankly. But we are buying this stuff hook, line and sinker. For everybody who went on for ages, Donald Trump is a Russian asset, Dominic Cummings is a Russian asset, Boris Johnson is a Russian asset. You are all idiot Russian assets if you believe any of this stuff about fracking. There's point number one. Exactly the same with the North Sea oil. You're exactly right. Why aren't we doing it? Total madness. And you could be using the cheap energy and the economic growth that comes from doing that to invest in exciting British technologies like the next generation of small nuclear reactors, which would also really help us out. And you can't have a thriving economy without a strong, cheap energy sector and lots of supply coming in. Not, of course, that Andy Burnham or Miata Fon, but only these people would know anything about that because none of them have ever had a job outside the public sector.
Well, it's good that she's...
I've got to say as well, that Andy Burnham was standing in that clip in front of a load of bananas and pineapples, right? Now, I know he's a fruitcake, but you can go into Sainsbury's and you can buy this exotic fruit for like, what, £1.50 or something that has been grown and flown around the world to Britain, and you can buy this delicious thing for a tiny amount. At one of the coronations of, I forget which British monarch it was, but in the early 19th century, there was a giant feast in Westminster Hall where every person got like 10 chickens and 4 cows and all the rest of it. And there was one pineapple for the whole coronation that was looked upon and adored as this incredible rarity. And now Andy Burnham is standing in front of a load of them because that's what capitalism can do. And yet he wants to give us more socialism instead. He is a massive pineapple.
Yeah, yes, he is. Talking of that, his far left backbenchers, of course, control him. He's just a puppet. They pull the strings. He has to do what they say. I think the problem with Andy is that he basically, constitutionally, is just another far left backbencher who happens to be in Downing Street or Downing Street North. He's naturally extremely far left. I would say virtually a Marxist. But he is under pressure from his backbenchers to solve the public finances crisis that his government is engulfed in by taxing the hell out of wealthy pensioners and also imposing massive levies on expensive houses in the south. Well, first of all, that won't solve the public finances crisis. And secondly, you want to solve the public finances crisis, Andy. It's pretty simple. Take around about at least £100 billion a year off our £350 billion welfare bill. You know, do something about this grotesque amount of money we're spending on benefits. Obviously, for many, many people, they don't deserve it. They just don't deserve it. There's a load of people swinging the lead, making up excuses, and we're just handing over money whenever our government, this Labour lot, talk about, you know, the public finances. We've got to do something about it. They never go to where the problem could be solved. That is cutting, severely cutting the welfare bill. They just won't do it, though, will they? They'll find some wealthy middle-class pensioners to give a hard time to, even though that won't solve the crisis.
Absolutely right. Look, for those who are watching the footage or have seen it of Andy Burnham putting on the Sainsbury's jacket next to Pat McFadden and Sadiq Khan, interesting it takes the three of them to do the job of one decent, normal, hard-working bloke from Sainsbury's, by the way. But Pat McFadden,
the checkout boys, yeah.
Yeah. No. The checkout boys would do a much better job than these three clowns are doing.
Well, let's hope they do check out. Eh?
There it is. But Pat McFadden was the bloke who said, basically, my entire job is trying to stop the rest of the cabinet from giving money away from people who've earned it to people who haven't earned it. So they know the problem with the welfare bill, that it's not going to those who genuinely need it or would benefit from it. It's going to people who just take. The fact that they know it and behind closed doors they laugh about it or they roll their eyes that they're doing it purely to buy votes, to try and keep them by the fingernails in office, actually is quite a disgusting thing to do, because they are bribing people to vote with our money, those of us who earn it. And that welfare bill is going to keep on growing because, funnily enough, Kev, there is, as an economist would say, an infinite level of demand for free money. Go figure. And we give money to foreigners through this, people who live in the country and don't work and don't contribute, and we send them money through the welfare bill. I had to explain this to some Americans the other day, and they thought I'd gone completely doolally. Right? They wanted to kind of
run that by me
stick
again.
a napkin through my ears. They couldn't believe it. Honestly, try going to some other places around the world and saying some of the maddest stuff that we do. I tried to convince a Singaporean taxi driver once that the rate of tax that you pay if you earn a decent bit of money is well over half of it, and he almost crashed the car in shock. Right? We are a laughing stock, and it's because of muppets like this who can barely put a loaf of bread on a shelf rather than help us keep putting bread on the table.
And he's just a cardboard cutout, this guy Burnham. He could be one of these ludicrous magic money tree far left backbenchers. He just happens to be in Downing Street. It's not difficult for him to fall into line with his idiot backbenchers who don't seem to understand anything about economics, because that's the way he thinks as well. He does not think things through. I don't think he understands the economy, but all he comes out with is, we're going to put migrants next to middle-class people. They've got to share their responsibility. Oh, by the way, let's start issuing slapping sanctions on Israelis on the West Bank settlement, because, my backbenchers will like that, even though it's arguably an anti-Semitic policy.
Yeah, well, this is the point, isn't it? They haven't really got any particular beliefs. They're just kind of buffeted along by the maddest people in the Labour Party, which, just in case you haven't been paying any attention for the last 100 years, is pretty damn mad. Yeah. and they don't understand any of this stuff because, again, none of them had a real job before, and they don't understand the kind of damage they're doing, or they don't care because they are terrified by what they might actually have to do in order to fix some of these problems, which is, as you say, to stop handing out free money, which is what a socialist always does, and address the fact that they have been lying to the public for decades about the kind of broiling social tensions that we're seeing. I thought it was really interesting that when Burnham actually had to answer one serious question, he made a massive faux pas when he said that everybody up and down the country is going to have to take their fair share of migrants or asylum seekers, rather than the official approved line, which is that these guys are all marvelous doctors and engineers and they're going to come and enrich us. At least they're now admitting that these third world child rapists are a burden on society. Well, that's progress.
It's small progress, but it's something to celebrate, I think. Maybe one day we'll arrive at something like common sense with this government, but I'm not betting the farm on it.
Dream on.
James, exactly. Good to have you on the show, mate, always. James Price there, former government special advisor, talking a lot of sense as he always does. Now, next up, we're going to talk about Newsnight. That's that much reduced nightly news show on the BBC. BBC Two these days. It looks like it could be axed because the bosses are trying to save 500 million quid. Well, Newsnight is much reduced anyway. It's basically 4 or 5 chattering class bores sitting on a sofa drivelling on about, whatever boring political issue they're discussing. So it's not up to much anyway. But I think it would be a shame if it was axed. Don't want news outlets axed, even Newsnight. But if you look into the statistics, there's plenty of other ways the BBC could pretty swiftly save £500 million. And it doesn't involve axing big programmes like Newsnight. We'll talk about that next. Stay tuned.
and go to Calais train station?
Yes, train station.
Okay. I was getting it. It was brutal. Come on, guys! Ready, full fence, go on! And we're on the way over to UK.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Just to reiterate, sad news event today. The legendary English actor and Rocky Horror Picture Show star Tim Curry has died at the age of 80. He lived in Los Angeles. I interviewed him a couple of times. Lovely man. He had suffered significant health problems since a major stroke in 2012 left him unable to walk. He suffered that stroke when he was having a massage and had to be rushed in for surgery. The British-born actor was known for playing larger-than-life characters like Dr. Frank N. Furter, of course, in the Rocky Horror Picture Show, both on screen and on stage. And also, he had well-known roles in Clue, Muppet Treasure Island and Home Alone 2. His last major role in a feature film was as Alexander Monroe in the British black comedy Burke and Hare. That was in 2010. Timothy was born in 1946 in Grappenhall, Cheshire. He was the son of a school secretary and a Royal Navy chaplain, James Curry. Tim never married, had no children, did not consider his relationship history to be a public matter. So R.I.P. Tim Curry, one of our legends. Very sad, 80 years old. So yesterday, poor old Dolly Parton died aged 80. Today, Tim Curry has died aged 80. Sad times, folks, sad times. R.I.P. Tim Curry. Now, let's move on. Let's talk about the BBC and Newsnight. I'll get my next guest straight on. He is ex-BBC presenter Adrian Mills. Hi, Adrian.
Hello, Kevin. How are you?
I'm OK. Good to have you on the show. Listen, you know, I wouldn't count Newsnight as my favourite programme, but, you know, I'm a journalist. I don't like to see journalistic outlets, be they print or broadcasting, axed. I don't, you know, that's an unhealthy development. Now, Newsnight, a long-term nightly show on the BBC, is facing the axe. Because despite the fact that the BBC gets an astronomical £3.5 billion licence fee donation every year, bosses apparently believe they're very cash-strapped and they're trying to save £500 million. Now, and Newsnight may be axed to help save that money. I mean, what is Newsnight these days? Not really all that much. It's 4 or 5 chattering class bores sitting on a curved sofa, being quite tedious, I think. But if the state broadcasters, grey suits, really want to save money, how about this, just as a thought? Maybe stop paying themselves such massive salaries. These figures have just come out. 130 BBC executives earn £178,000 a year or more. 130. 11 HR supremos, 11, are all on an average of £220,000 a year. And many of these fat cats recently received 6-figure pay rises, while the rank and file staff were offered 1.5% rises. So if these BBC fat cats who run the show stop paying themselves so much money, and if the state broadcasters stopped employing quite so many totally unnecessary, overpaid executives, they could save this £500 million at a stroke and save Newsnight. There you go. I've solved the problem. What do you think?
Well, I'll see you again next week.
Yeah, thanks, Adrian. Yeah, cheers. That was great.
No, there are two issues here. One, as a long-term fan of Newsnight, I have really enjoyed watching the programme, but I enjoyed it when it was in the days of Jeremy Paxman.
Me too, mate.
Because you would then get the real grilling of MPs. You know, who could ever forget Michael Howard being asked 13 times about the prison service, and he just kept bashing on at him. And I was watching thinking, this is fantastic. Now, I'm not for 1 minute saying that people like Victoria Derbyshire, who presents the programme now most of the time, is not a great journalist. However, the nature of the programme has changed. It doesn't seem to challenge in the way that it used to do. However, I know we've argued in the past, you and I, about the BBC licence fee and is it good value for money? And you say no, and I say, well, it's not that bad. But I do want to know that actually my money is being spent on programmes that may be a bit more niche. They may only pull in an audience of 2 million. That's why I'm paying my licence fee, to actually watch the programmes that are not big mainstream, Strictly Come Dancing, Traitors, Match of the Day, although Match of the Day seems to be in trouble as well. It is a very strange scenario at the BBC. I think it would be very sad. I know they've already reduced their staff from about 50 down to about 23 on Newsnight.
That's right.
Which probably reflects why a lot of the investigative stuff isn't as great as it used to be. And that's why you end up with a few talking heads round a sofa. But when you talk about cutting back, and you just quoted the salaries, and some of them have been given pay increases of nearly £100,000.
Six-figure pay rise. Oh, you got a pay rise, it's more than £100. Is that okay? £100,000. Is that okay? Yeah, that'll do nicely. Yeah.
It is apt. And don't forget the pension contributions that these people will walk away with. And I know that when they offer redundancy, and I know a number of my colleagues from years gone by took very lucrative redundancy packages. Some of these redundancy packages are, well, would you mind moving on? You can go and work in the private sector, and we've got £100,000 plus for you lined up. That's when it sticks in the throat, because this is my money, it's your money. Should you be paying for the licence fee? And that's why I think it's so wrong, because I don't believe for 1 minute that some of the people, and believe you me, I know one or two of them, are that talented, and I don't think that they would survive in the private sector. And if they had to sink or swim, I think a couple of them would sink very rapidly.
Well, Adrian, we're on the same page about Newsnight. I think it would be very sad if it went. I mean, I much preferred it in its heyday when it was an hour. They had a full investigations team. They did brilliant reports out on the road around the world. It's a very reduced entity these days. But for it to go all together would be very, very sad and would seriously affect the schedules. You know, the BBC should have a serious news analysis programme late-ish at night.
Very much so, but it's what do they value? That's the important thing. It's that there should be a discussion programme, as you say, late at night. You know, we get our news from sort of, 6 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, whatever. But I want to hear in-depth discussion. That's what's sadly lacking, and that's what they need to inject back into the programme. And I hope to goodness that whoever's making these decisions isn't just looking at it from a numbers point of view and going, well, it used to get 6 million, it now gets 1.5 to 2 million. We can let it go. No one will kick up a fuss. I think people should, whether it be Joe Public or whether it be journalists like ourselves, should actually say, no, this is a very valued contribution to the public discussion. I always remember, and I'm going back, many years to when I used to work on Matt's Life, and Mark Thompson, who was the head of the BBC, he announced just before we were about to go on that next year is your last series because we don't feel that there's an appetite for That's Life anymore. First programme back, 11.5 million viewers tuned in.
So here's the deal, though, Adrian. The point is, you talked about Newsnight, 2 million down to 1 million in their dreams. It's considerably less than that. But that is what the BBC, that's the point of the BBC. If Newsnight gets 300,000 viewers, and people say, oh, that doesn't justify the show. Well, the BBC gets the licence fee to justify those minority interest shows. But frankly, I don't think news should be a minority interest, but it kind of is. But that's what the BBC should be all about.
Absolutely.
Let me just get your thoughts on this, though.
Okay.
I mean, your sense impression of this. I say that 130 executives earning more than £178,000 and 11 HR Supremos earning £220,000 a year. I think it's grotesque. It's obscene. They don't need all of these executives. You worked there. You know they got at the BBC. I know the BBC. I've worked at the BBC as well. It's full of these people who sit in offices with personal assistant, PAs, secretaries. They used to say they go out for lunch. They got their name on the door. Nobody can actually work out what the hell it is. You know, what does the director of Future do, etc. What are these jobs? They're just jobs for the boys and the girls, and they're hideously
They certainly
overpaid.
are.
Yeah.
Well, I think back to my time, and there was one person whose name shall remain anonymous for the time being, completely and utterly inept and useless at what they did. And I could not believe how they were promoted rapidly throughout the BBC and ended up as the head of somewhere. Yeah. And I'm thinking, but this is just extraordinary. And of course, why would you want to move? It's a bit like working for your local council. You're going to get a nice ring-fence pension. You're getting a fantastic salary. You're claiming all your allowances, and you're probably getting a parking space right outside the front door. Yeah. It's just obscene, as to use your word. And I really genuinely don't feel, and you heard me many times defend the BBC. Yeah, sure. I find this really difficult to defend because I don't believe anybody working there in HR is worth 200 grand plus. I really don't.
Yeah, why have they got 11 HR executives anyway? I'll give you a final story, Adrian. You'll appreciate this. When the BBC was in the process of moving from Wood Green, Shepherd's Bush, Wood Lane, Shepherd's Bush, over to their now very plush new broadcasting house right in the middle of the West End. I said to a very senior executive there, this is costing you like £1 billion, isn't it? He said, yeah, it's very expensive. I said, well, why exactly are you doing it? I mean, you've been in Shepherd's Bush forever. It's almost kind of part of the BBC brand. Why are you moving into the centre of town? He said, because too many executives are sick to death of having to make their way into the West End every day for lunch.
That I can believe. And, you know, it is just an extension of what was in the mid-80s, the BBC Club, where more and more executives used to get absolutely addled on their wine and beer. And how anybody made a programme in the afternoon is completely beyond me.
Yeah, indeed. So they all came into, they set up £1 billion studio in the middle of London so they can go to the flash restaurants in the West End. Somebody will be in touch with me to say that's an absolutely outrageous thing to say, but there's a lot of people in the BBC know that there's more to that than there should be, right?
Yeah, and actually, just as a final point as well, I remember I did the series Eggheads, and it was a whole team from the programme I was on, 5 of us, were flown up. I'm mentioning it was either Salford or Scotland, just so that it could say that it was made in Scotland.
Yeah, I know that thing.
Yeah. And all the eggheads were flown up, all of us were given taxes, and all of us were flown back. I go, how much has that cost? It's ludicrous.
I used to regularly, once a week, be given the first-class tickets up to Manchester, be picked up by a limousine to go to Media City to do a 15-minute TV critique slot, and then go immediately back in the limo to Piccadilly Station in Manchester, get back on the first class and back to London for 10 minutes. And I say, why are you doing this? Oh, well, it sounds a little bit better. It's just
another 1,000 episodes of Homes Under the Hammer. That'll keep the budget going.
Exactly right. The thing is that too many of the people who work at the BBC have never really worked in the private sector. They don't understand the commercial imperative. And I think it's sowing the seeds of potential destruction. They've got to raise their game. And that I don't say that with any joy. I mean, I'm a fan of the BBC. It just needs to change the way it's funded, and it needs to, you know, get its act together, because it isn't at the moment. Adrian, brilliant to have you on the show, as always. Thank you so much. The excellent Adrian Mills, former BBC presenter there, on the future of Newsnight. Yeah, what do you think about that? 130 executives, 130 executives at the BBC. This is your money, your licence fee money, on £178,000 or more. 11 HR Supremos on an average of £220,000 a year. It's just, they're taking our money and dividing it between themselves. Make good programmes. Don't axe programmes. Stop paying yourselves so much and save programmes like Newsnight. It's not rocket science. Next up, we'll talk about Ukraine and Andy Burnham I'm going to ask the question, has Andy Burnham put British people at risk by sort of boasting about giving Zelensky secret missile technology? Putin immediately declared, well, that makes Britain a legitimate wartime target. I just think maybe Mr. Burnham could have been a little bit more discreet about his generosity, don't you think? We'll talk about that next. Stay tuned.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Now, Vladimir Putin, the Russian tyrant, has announced that Britain is now a legitimate wartime target. The reason for his fury is that Andy Burnham made a thing on his recent trip to Ukraine, where he met Zelensky, obviously, of handing Zelensky this sensitive missile technology that will help Ukraine build these incredible weapons to attack Russia with. Well, Putin said, well, that makes Britain complicit. It makes Britain a wartime target. As a result, the government is now advising us to stock up food and water in case of an attack by a foreign country, and also, of course, in case of a climate change emergency. Forget about the second bit, but the question really is, has Andy Burnham put us at risk? Let's talk to former Tory Security Minister Sir Gerald Howarth. Welcome, Sir Gerald.
Good afternoon, Kevin.
Good to have you on the show. I mean, yes, we stand four square with Ukraine. Yes, we help Ukraine. Yes, we give them money. Did you think Andy Burnham might have been a little bit more discreet about handing Zelensky this sensitive missile technology, the secrets of this technology, so Ukraine can use that to build these weapons? Because the moment that emerged, Putin said, right, Britain's now a legitimate wartime target. As such, my point would be, shouldn't perhaps Mr. Burnham have been a bit more discreet about that? Because he appears possibly, potentially, to have put the British people at risk.
No, emphatically not. I thought that the Prime Minister took exactly the right stand. He was in line with the view that has been adopted by successive prime ministers from both the Conservative Party and the Labour Party since the invasion of Ukraine in 2022 by this brutal regime in Moscow. And I think that it will have sent a message to Moscow that under the new regime here, that our resolve has not retreated in any way whatsoever. And Russia can expect us to give the kind of support to Ukraine, which they, Russia, are getting from China, North Korea, and Iran, three of the most despotic regimes around the world.
But why do you have to make a big thing about saying here's some very secretive, sensitive missile technology, which obviously immediately infuriated Putin? He said, and basically said, right, I might attack Britain now. He could have just given him this technology and not made a thing of it.
No, I think it's important that we did declare what we are doing, because it sends the clearest message to Moscow, who are not the brightest of people anyway, sends the clearest possible message that we are continuing in our united resolve to support Ukraine to ensure that Russia is unable to complete its invasion of that country, and hopefully that every Russian will be driven out of every square inch of Ukraine which they have occupied. And it's important, Kevin, to understand that this operation, this special operation, as the war was called by Putin at the outset, was intended to take a maximum of 4 days. It was only because Britain supplied NLAW anti-tank missiles to Ukraine that they were able to drive the tanks out of Moscow, out of Kyiv, and prevent the immediate occupation of the whole of Ukraine by Russia. So we have made a massive contribution in that respect. And Russia is becoming more and more desperate as they fail and fail and fail again and sacrifice hundreds of thousands of Russian lives in this futile and brutal occupation of somebody else's country, especially as Russia signed an agreement along with the United Kingdom and the United States in 1995, the Budapest Memorandum, under which we three countries agreed to respect the sovereignty, independence, and the then existing borders of Ukraine, an agreement in which Russia is in flagrant breach, and America in having not given the fullest support it possibly could. I argue that America has not fulfilled its obligation in a way that the United Kingdom has.
I think Donald Trump is taking on board that a lot of people aren't that thrilled about handing lots of money and weapons to Ukraine, and that goes for the British people as well. A lot of people do wonder why we give so much money, so many resources to Ukraine when we at home here are really suffering financially at the cost of living. I mean, that's a difficult conundrum, isn't it?
You're quite right. I mean, I do understand that. You know, people are struggling at home. We've just heard our energy bills are all going to go up, and food prices are going up in the supermarkets. I quite understand that. But we do need to put this in context. And the context is that if Russia succeeds in Ukraine, do not imagine that Putin will stop there.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
He's a nasty little man. He made it clear in 2021 that he intended, effectively, I paraphrase, to rebuild the Soviet Union. Ergo, he will not stop at Ukraine. He will go for somewhere else. And we have recently seen this massive NATO exercise around Kaliningrad, which is a tiny little enclave of 1 million people, mostly Russians, pushed in there after the Second World War, because it was originally a German territory. And that is surrounded by Lithuania to the north and Poland to the south, and is completely cut off from the rest of Russia. So we saw a massive NATO exercise there on the 18th of August, which I think was designed to send a very clear message to Moscow that you try and undertake another military operation like you've done in Ukraine and expect us, NATO, to respond. And the significance is the Americans contributed, despite what Donald Trump has been saying about NATO, they contributed, I'm told, between 50 and 60 aircraft, including surveillance aircraft, communications aircraft, command and control aircraft, air-to-air refuelers, as well as F-35 combat aircraft. You know, Kevin, I do want our people to wake up and understand that there are some similarities between what's happening now and the 1930s. And we have a generation which is eyes down, focused on their mobile phones and all the trivia that is encompassed in social media. And they do need to wake up and see what is going on in the rest of the world.
What do you think is going to happen? I mean, there are serious signs that you might invade Poland now. What will happen then?
Well, the invasion of Poland would be a clear...
It's got a bad history, hasn't it, the invasion of Poland?
Well, this is the whole point. This is what people need to understand, that NATO has a clause in the treaty. It is called Article 5, and under Article 5, an attack on one NATO member is deemed to be an attack on all, and therefore invokes a retaliation. That, in words of one syllable, Kevin, is World War III. Yeah. And people need to understand, because Russia is constantly pressing NATO to see how far they can go in achieving their objectives. So they without NATO retaliating. So at the end of the day, Russia has to calculate at what point will NATO trigger Article 5 and really unleash the dogs of war upon Russia. And don't forget, last week, in retaliation for what Prime Minister Burnham said in Kyiv, the Russians suggested they would attack British defense companies in our own land.
That's what I'm saying. That's my point.
Remember what happened in Salisbury? They had sent 2 Russian agents to poison people in Salisbury. You know, we've got to wake up and understand that this is really, really serious. And I just fear that people don't understand the significance. And I read a report that apparently only 6% of the people in this country are prepared to fight for it. Well, you know, people better start getting real, because there won't be an NHS, there won't be education if we have to spend all the money on fighting a war against Russia.
I'll tell you what the government needs to do, Gerald, is this. They need to launch a big campaign to convince the people of the arguments you've been putting forward, because too many people in this country just feel you're just chucking all our money to the east, you're just throwing it to Ukraine, we're struggling. So the government should embark on some kind of publicity campaign to explain why all their tax money, or the people's tax money, is going to Kiev, because a lot of people are not particularly on board with this at the moment. And if you...
No, I couldn't agree with you more. You're absolutely right, and that's why I'm really grateful to you, Kevin, for giving me, an old political soldier, the opportunity to make this point.
We're both old soldiers, Gerald. We're both old soldiers.
Well, I like what you said about the BBC. I mean, I do think, if I may, just as a slight diversion, but £220,000 on HR.
11 of them, plus 130 executives, all earning more than £178,000 a year. It's disgusting.
And to deliver the woke agenda to the BBC. These people should be sacked this afternoon. About 5 to 6.
I wish they would be, Gerald. Gerald, listen, I've got to go, but it's great to have you on the show, as always. Thank you so much. Sir Gerald Howarth there, former Conservative Security Minister, on the thorny issue of Ukraine. But trust me, old Putin seems to be building up to invade Poland. There are big fears he's about to do that. And as Gerald Howarth just said, if that happens, that's World War III. So all is not well in the East, folks. Let me know, though, are you happy for this continuation of us paying all that money to Kiev to fund their war against Russia? And did Andy Burnham put us at risk by making a big thing? Look, I'm giving this secret missile technology to Zelensky so he can build missiles and fire them at Russia, at Moscow. Putin goes, right, that makes Britain a legitimate target. Did Burnham, while he's showing off about this missile technology, put Brits at risk? 03444991000. Next up, it's time for sport with Night Sports editor at The Sun, Phil Cadden. That next, stay tuned.
go to Calais train station?
Yes, train station.
Okay. I was gripping it. It was brutal. Come on, guys! Ready, full fence, go on! And we're on the way over to UK.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, Sport. Phil Cadden, Night Sports Editor at The Sun, is in the studio. Welcome, Phil. Now, I was at Craven Cottage on Monday. It was a fun game. It was a good game. We unfortunately lost 3-2, but we were all laughing our heads off about two things. So poor old Enzo Fernandez, he's going to have a very nasty season. You know, the nicest chant the Fulham fans were, you know, Enzo Fernandez, the Falklands are ours. That was just the nicest one. But anyway, good game. And the Chelsea keeper, Robert Sanchez, was frankly lamentable, and I'm seeing here they're ready to move. Chelsea are ready to move for Aston Villa keeper Emi Martinez.
Yeah, as you rightly say, Kev, Sanchez made two high-profile errors, which led to both Fulham goals. First one, he was beaten at his front post by Josh King.
That's right.
And then the second one, he just sort of parried it in front of himself, and then Garcia scored with the rebound. And I think there's been a lot of talk of Chelsea in pre-season under Javi Alonso, new manager, a bit of a revolution going on there, bringing in Morgan Rogers to pair with Cole Palmer and then João Pedro. Great attack, but considering what Sanchez did on Monday, they have to address the goalkeeper situation.
They do.
So they're looking at Emilio Martinez of Aston Villa, another Argentinian, so that will only increase the sort of abuse that might come.
All the
from
Argentinian
fans,
players are in for a bad season, I'll tell you.
But they clearly know that's an area that they have to address, because if they want to compete, never mind win the title, even compete for the title, you've got to get a better goalkeeper than Sanchez.
Yeah, they really do. Let's move on to Manchester City. They've signed Ayoub Bouadi from Lille for £85.6 million. He's going to fill the boots of Rodri, great player, obviously. They're also about to make an offer for Enzo Fernandez for £100 million. I mean, money isn't really any object for City, is it?
Yeah.
This is unbelievable.
Well, the transfer window closes next Tuesday night, but today's actually felt as if it's deadline day. There's clubs doing business left, right and centre. As you rightly say, Bouadi's come in. He's the most expensive teenager in Prem history, £85.6 million. He's obviously going to replace Rodri, big boots to fill, but Olivier Giroud, who played with him at Lille in France, says that he's a mixture of Patrick Vieira and Sergio Busquets, so
that'll do.
high praise indeed. They're obviously looking at Enzo Fernandez. As you rightly said, he got abuse on Monday night at Craven Cottage, but he's been touted to move to City for all summer since Enzo Maresco, who was actually at Chelsea. He wants to be reunited with him at the Etihad. City are going to make a £100 million bid. Chelsea want 120. I would imagine that will happen before next Tuesday.
These clubs and the money they've got. This is interesting. Jack Grealish, obviously was on loan at Everton, but he's still on City's books. But Sunderland fancy their chances of getting him. What's the strength of that story?
Well, it's a shock one today, but they're exploring the option to try and get Grealish. I mean, he was on loan at Everton last season, bit surprised David Moyes hasn't gone back in to try and
he was
get him again, because he did quite well in the first half of the season. Then he had a stress fracture of the foot. He missed the second half of the season. He's only got a year left on his contract. It would be a loan move with the possibility of a permanent then when his contract expires next season. But Grealish has gone from a £100 million player in 2021 to being a bit part of Man City. So I'm surprised there's not more interest in him.
Yeah, he's still a great player, yeah, and I thought Everton, I mean, he seemed to fit in very nicely there. They loved him there, didn't they? And then he had the injury, but I wouldn't have thought that would, you know, mean that they'd let him go, but it looks like they're going to. I reckon he might go to Sunderland. I mean, he's a guy who's at that stage of his career where he just wants first-team football.
Well, it's not just first-team football, but Sunderland are in the Europa League this year as well.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
So obviously they'll have a lot of games, showcase his talent maybe. The last year of his contract, it'd be good for him to get away from City because he's clearly not going to play there. And then as a free agent maybe next summer, if he doesn't stay at Sunderland, then maybe he could go elsewhere. Quick preview of the Carabao Cup matches tonight. Spurs playing? Spurs are playing, and obviously all eyes are on them after the weekend. A horrendous start at Brentford.
Very sad. They were
spent over £300 million.
To be rubbish.
They're about to sign Omar Marmoush as well, so that's going to obviously increase the spending this summer. But what they can't do is lose to Charlton. I mean, they've got a championship team coming at home. Obviously, Spurs don't win many trophies, and if they lost tonight, that would be humiliating.
No, you got that wrong, Phil. Spurs don't win any trophies.
Well, they beat United in the Europa League final.
There is
and
that.
I've not
there
forgotten that.
Yeah, well, I've forgotten it. Phil, great to have you in the studio. Phil Cadner, night sports editor at the Sun newspaper. After the break, we're going to be joined by Robert Bates from the Centre for Migration Control. We're going to talk about those migrant crime statistics again. So stay tuned for that. See you in a minute.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
welcome back. Was just discussing the big match tonight, the Carabao Cup match, Spurs versus Charlton Athletic. At Spurs. The kickoff is at 7:45, but there is live coverage of the match on talkSPORT from 7 p.m. So 7 p.m. the pre-match, then 7:45 coverage of the actual match. It'll be a very fascinating game too. Let's move on to the third hour of this eventful episode of Drive Time. Now, in a little while, I'm going to discuss sporting snobbery. At least I say it is. Why is it that Harry says, "Oh, when I come back, I'm going to be a stay-at-home dad," and he's going to be such a devoted father? He says he's going to go and watch Archie, his son, play rugby every week. Well, he's only a little kid yet so far, so he's not exactly already playing. Why rugby? Why rugby? You know, our national sport, our national winter sport is soccer, as they say in America. It's football, isn't it? So why does Harry want Archie to play rugby? I say it's because it's a snobbish thing. It's a sports snobbery issue. You know what they say, rugby is a game for thugs played by gentlemen. Football is a game for gentlemen played by thugs. Football is a working class sport. Rugby is a middle class sport. Why is that? Why doesn't Harry want his son to play the national game? We'll talk about that in 20-25 minutes or so. In the meantime, let's go over to my next guest. He is Robert Bates from the Centre for Migration Control. Hi, Rob.
Evening, Kevin. Thanks for having me.
Good to get you on the show, because we started the show with this you're at the centre of this, what looks like a deliberate cover-up by the Ministry of Justice, or the government basically, about foreign national crime statistics. Your organisation has put in a Freedom of Information request asking for a breakdown of all the crimes committed by foreign nationals in the last 7 years. How many crimes, what type of crimes, what kind of nationalities are committing what kind of crimes, etc., etc., etc. You've been told by the Ministry of Justice, oh, that will cost too much money, we just can't bring you that information, blah, blah, blah. Meanwhile, more and more families of the victims of crimes by migrants, asylum seekers, foreign nationals, often very serious crimes, you know, sexual offences, murders, crimes of violence, is just saying that this is outrageous. We should know this information. Knowing this information is important to the safety of the people of this nation. And yet our government, also the Information Commissioner has come down on your side, said there's no reason to keep this information secret, and yet the government, the Ministry of Justice, is sticking to its guns and will not tell you. This is an outrage, isn't it?
Yeah, first of all, I do have to commend the families and the victims that have come forward. I think actually it's never easy to put your name in the public realm, but particularly on this issue, you do get a lot of flack thrown your way. So I think they have shown a lot of bravery there. On the Ministry of Justice's migrant crime cover-up, it's not just that the Information Commissioner Office ruled that they did have to publish this data. Is that now the Ministry of Justice is using taxpayers' money to take the matters to the court. So we've got a long process ahead of us to challenge the Ministry of Justice's attempted pushback. And I think it is important people realise how significant this data would be once it's in the public realm. It will allow us to hold to account the Home Office, which is very happy to talk about deporting a lot of foreign criminals, but actually, is its deportation numbers sufficient? How many foreign criminals are there actually being convicted every single year? It will allow us to see the nationalities of those convicted of crimes, and to maybe think, well, hold on, we seem to have a certain problem here. Let's maybe not let individuals from that country enter the UK. And especially when it comes to the Channel crisis, I think we will see undoubtedly those nationalities that we do know coming across overrepresented. I think that most of the public would expect that to be the case, given the daily slew of news stories that we do see on this issue. But we won't know for certain until the Ministry of Justice decides to trust the British public with the truth. Have a bit of transparency in government for once.
And I think it's reasonable for us to speculate that the reason the government doesn't want us to know this information is that that information will be embarrassing for the government, that the level of crimes and the number of serious crimes being committed by foreign nationals in this country is alarming. That is what I would suggest is why the Ministry of Justice is going to the ends of the earth now, fighting your bid to get this information legally. They're covering this up because it will be embarrassing for the government.
I think it would blow apart their worldview, and it would make life incredibly difficult for them, not just because they are now having to turn around to the British public and say to them with a straight face, oh, well, we have British criminals as well, which seems to be the only refrain that we do hear whenever we hear of another migrant atrocity. Yes, of course, we have British criminals, but that is not an excuse for importing further issues. I think actually, though, the real reason why they are so hesitant is because such will be the outrage when these figures are released that the Ministry of Justice will have to do something, and it will require government front benches to start taking those difficult decisions when it comes to removals, or face the wrath of the electorate. But alternatively, if they do choose to go down that route and try and actually do what the country wants them to do, they will have a storm on their back benches. So they really will be in a bit of a bind once this data does come out. And I am very confident that that their attempts to cover this up will eventually falter and fail. But it is just the simple fact that we have a government now continuing to issue hundreds of thousands of visas every single year, doing next to nothing on the Channel crisis, handing out leaflets telling new arrivals not to sexually assault or rape individuals, but then at the same time not allowing us to see the consequences of their actions. It is a complete affront to the very concept of democracy.
Yes, indeed. And I don't know if you've seen it yet, but if you haven't, I commend it to you. Yesterday, we ran the documentary by the undercover migrant Christian Drogan, who became the first journalist. August the 3rd, he did this. The first ever British journalist to come across the Channel on a migrant dinghy. He documented the whole process of how you hand over the money, how you get your ticket, how you get on the, the running to the beach, and he had several attempts that didn't work. It's an extraordinary documentary. Finally, revealing exactly what happens, exactly the process that migrants go through to get onto these boats, and then what happens. These are the early stages. This is northern France, if you're watching on TV. And what happens when you get halfway across the Channel, sure enough, so Christian's sitting on this dinghy, and out of the from the horizon comes the big border patrol boat, and Border Force patrol boat, and picked them all up, took them into Dover. So, a great piece of journalism. It was dangerous, but often great journalism can be dangerous. The Home Office immediately issued a statement decrying what Christian had achieved, calling it reckless and dangerous. This, to my mind, and by the way, subsequent to that, quietly, the government or the Home Office got in touch with Christian and said, could you come in and we can have a chat about what you found out? So, there's a kind of mixed messages coming out of the Home Office, but mainly what I think about their initial response, just to knee-jerk release this statement, dangerous, reckless and dangerous. They just hate the idea of the oxygen of publicity, of transparency falling upon this migrant crisis. They don't want us to know this stuff, and they react angrily. So just in the way that they're not telling you the very important statistics about the levels of foreign national crime, they're not at all keen on journalists shining a light on the migrant crisis itself. They think somehow or other they can tackle this crisis by keeping the truth about it from the public. That is a mission that will end in disaster.
Well, the Channel crisis itself is reckless and dangerous, and the Labour government's lack of willingness to address that is reckless and dangerous. I think you are absolutely right. I think they have been embarrassed by what was broadcast on Talk. I think they've been very, very careful to try and stage manage the Channel crisis for the last couple of weeks. We saw that footage of the French police taking decisive action of slashing a boat.
Propaganda, flat-out propaganda, that was.
Precisely. So they've been very, very careful to try and mollycoddle and see off any of the criticism that people have rightly been raising, this idea that we've been sending hundreds of millions to the French and they've been doing next to nothing. And what we have now finally seen exposed is not just the sort of coordinated nature within which these crossings take place, how orchestrated it is, and actually how determined many of those migrants are to make this crossing, and the preparedness to just turn back and make another crossing if their first doesn't succeed, which completely blows apart the Home Office's suggestion that they can solve this through temporarily seizing a vessel here or there. And I think it is something that they especially under Burnham, do not want to be talking about this problem. They would much rather be talking about absolutely anything else. And we have now seen this crisis enter a brand new stage of mega dinghies, of crossings, changing the routes that they are taking. This is something that any of the operational measures that were put in place and had maybe gleaned some form of success have now been completely counteracted by the people smugglers changing their tactics, and the crossings are just going to continue.
Well, here's Andy Burnham getting to grips with the really important political issues of the day. Here he goes. Take it away, Andy.
My thoughts, I was a huge fan of what Dolly did around literacy around the world. I was Culture Secretary when her libraries were first coming through, and the books that went into communities across Britain. You know, what a legacy to leave. And it was so moving to hear about her dad and how that experience made her want to give back so much. So yeah, she leaves that legacy as well as obviously great music that people will treasure forever.
Yeah, he prefers to talk about Dolly Parton. He was in Sainsbury's today with Pat McFadden, and he was asked about energy prices, which of course we've learned today are likely to go up by at least £260 a year between now and 2030. I reckon it'll be more than that. But these energy prices, our energy bills, keep on soaring, not just rising, they keep on soaring, in direct contradiction to what crazy Ed Miliband told us. If we go to clean energy, I'm going to take hundreds and hundreds of pounds off your bills. No, no, no. What he's done is he's added hundreds and hundreds of pounds to our bill. And it's going to get worse. So Andy Burnham was asked about this. He said, yeah, I know it's very, very tough. I know these energy bills are tough, and that's why I'm taking VAT off the energy bills to make it a little easier. I would suggest that also, if you want to bring the bills down, start drilling like crazy in the North Sea, start fracking, and stop wasting money on windmills and solar panels all over the country. That'll bring our bills hurtling downwards. Anyway, later, the new Nut Zero secretary, the woman who took over from Ed Miliband, Miatta Fahnbulleh, she was asked about energy bills. She was specifically asked energy bills. We've just learnt they're going to go up by £260 between now and 2030. The next decade, they're going to keep on going. What are we going to do about this? Can we do about our energy bill? People can't afford this. This was her response to the question, what are you going to do about rising energy bills? Listen to this.
But let me come to the fundamentals of it. We are very clear that the climate transition and climate change is happening now. I think for people, and there are people in other parties that are very sceptical about this, I say look at the droughts, look at the wildfires, speak to the firefighters. Climate change is here. The thing that the experts told us about, extreme weather, that is happening, which is why we, as a Labour government, both past and present, are incredibly proud of our record on climate change. That's not about to change. We've got to act to make sure that we're mitigating the impacts of climate change, and things like the energy transition play a part in that, but we've also got to make sure that we're adapting so that our communities are far more resilient.
She doesn't care. She didn't answer the question about soaring energy bills. She just went off into a diatribe, signalling her own virtue and how wonderful the government have been about climate change. Look, there's wildfires. What can we do about your energy bills? She essentially said. That was it. That's what we're in the hands of. People who want to signal their virtue about all the hard work they're doing about climate change. So what she's saying, this is the government's approach to all of us, everybody in this country who's struggling with their energy bills. She's saying, put up, shut up while we save the planet, because we are full of virtue and our green policies are wonderful. Never mind your bills, I've got my virtue to think about. It's really worrying and it's incredibly annoying.
She's a snake oil salesman, and just the way she glances over, oh, we need to get ready for the energy transition, as if that's just something that's going to happen. Well, the technology doesn't exist. The energy prices of renewables are astronomical. It's only because we continue to subsidise these forms of energy that they're in any way actually being used. And it's just so infuriating that now I think the net zero consensus in the population is definitely shattered. And I think when you see the price rises announced today, it's only going to continue to go that way. I think everyone can see that actually putting ourselves in a straitjacket of net zero, which will cost us upwards of £40 billion, the economy £40 billion every single year by 2030, and for what end? For tackling 1% of global emissions, offshoring a lot of our emissions as well, continuing to be reliant on imports of gas from elsewhere, rather than actually using our own natural resources, which could cause a huge economic boon, especially in the northwest, where we do have real shale gas reservoirs there that could keep
biggest
us...
in Europe, the one under Lincolnshire is the biggest in Europe. We're not allowed to exploit it because that would destroy the planet. Meanwhile, because fracking is bad, meanwhile, we buy loads of fracked energy from America. The hypocrisy is off the scale, but old Miata and Ed before her and all the cabinet, they don't care about us. They think their ideology and their zealotry about green claptrap is far more important than the welfare of the British people, and that's terrifying.
But it's not even as if it's more green. As you say, we do continue to import lots of gas from America, Qatar, Norway as well. But it's actually worse for the environment because you have to freeze it, transport it halfway around the globe, and then unfreeze it at the other end as well. It is absolute lunacy, but it allows them to have a British emissions spreadsheet that is looking tidy, and they can feel very make with themselves as they go around international fora and show off to all their friends. Meanwhile, everyone back home is struggling to make ends meet and having to make do without the heating being on during winter. It is crazy. It is national suicide going down this route. And unfortunately, I think the current Energy Secretary is going to actually be just as bad as Ed Miliband. She's not quite as memeable as Ed Miliband because of course, it's Ed Miliband. But I think that the damage that she will continue to wrap our economy in, the dynamite of net zero, is going to be really woeful for pretty much every household for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, it's really that they just don't care about us. They're too busy, going to their Guardian reading North London dinner parties to discuss how wonderful they are. As you quite rightly say, there's nothing this country can do to change anything about the global climate picture because we're not doing it any damage. We're not doing the environment any damage. We produce less than 1% of the world's carbon emissions. Meanwhile, China spews out 28%. Russia, Brazil, India, Australia's no slouch, America, they are chugging the pollution out into the air. We could never make any difference, and yet we are ruled by people who say we have to live a hair-shirt existence so they can look good. Honestly, they can go to hell, frankly, Robert.
But those other nations are laughing at us. It's like Britain has hurtled towards a project that every country kind of lukewarmly signed up to. But we have plunged headfirst into it in a way that many other countries just simply wouldn't countenance because it's nationally reckless. It's incredibly irresponsible. And I think, unfortunately, if you were concerned about climate change and you wanted Britain to have some influence on reducing global emissions, the way to go about that is not to unilaterally start reducing your emissions and say to everyone else, oh, you guys just carry on and actually we'll import from you and use your carbon-heavy industries as well, because they're going to look at us now if we go to them and start saying, hey, guys, maybe cut your emissions a little bit. They're going to go, well, who the heck are you to tell us what to do? You're immiserating yourself and your own country. I think it's laughable on an international diplomacy element, apart from actually any other of the costs that are associated with it on a domestic front as well.
You're right, other countries are laughing at us, but people in this country are hurting. They are really suffering because of this government's mad net zero insanity. It's derangement, it really is. Robert, great to have you on the show as always. Thank you so much. Robert Bates, the brilliant research director at the Centre for Migration Control. Next up, we're going to talk about, well, Harry and Meghan. They're back in Britain. They landed quietly in Birmingham around about lunchtime. So they're back. Look out. Batten down the hatches. We'll talk about that, and also I want to talk about why it is that Harry automatically assumes that Archie's going to play rugby. Why can't he play football? Football's our national sport. Is it that football's a bit too working class for Harry? Is that what it is? And rugby's nice and middle class. We'll find out about that and find out about what the hell's going on with the gruesome twosome. Now they have touched down at Birmingham Airport. So all of that next with royal author, the royal editor, Robert Jobson. That next. Stick around.
Go to Calais train station?
Yes, train station.
Okay. I was gripping. It was brutal. Come on, guys! Ready, full fence, go on! And we're on the way over to UK.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
They're back. Harry and Meghan quietly touched down at Birmingham Airport today. I suspect they did that because they thought they were being clever. You know, the media would at least expect them to go to Birmingham Airport. I'm not sure the media's that bothered anymore. I think they're the kind of people who measure their own worth by the levels of interest from the paparazzi in them. But you know, they're still worth a picture. I'm not quite sure. I think they're probably trading on past glories in terms of general interest, and I think the people of Britain don't really want them here, but they're here. And Harry has plans for his kid. He wants to go to his rugby matches every weekend. I'm saying, why rugby? Let's talk to the royal editor, esteemed author of a current book. You can get this at your shelves right now in your bookstores or Amazon, The Windsor Legacy, but many other books out there as well. Robert Jobson. Welcome, Rob.
Hi, Kevin.
Good to have you on the show. Well, first of all, they're back. What would you imagine the early days of their return will be about? I mean, my theory, you're much more of an expert than me, obviously, is one of the important appointments that Harry wants to make will be with his father to go there and say, Dad, I'm broke, can I have some money?
I think that's probably already happened, but the King's up in Scotland at the moment with William and Catherine and the kids up there. I can imagine them going up to Scotland, yeah. When William and Catherine are out the way and they've gone on their travels, I think that Harry and the kids and Meghan will probably go up to Scotland at some stage. They're going to settle their house. That's a busy time for them. They're going to sort the kids out in school. Again, a situation they're going to work on. But I mean, it's quite interesting, you know, that the spokesman for Harry and Meghan saying, "Oh no, their arrival's a private matter, and they wouldn't talk about it for security." Yet the ones that are on side in the WhatsApp group are all there ready taking the picture. We all know that the media will play the game because, you know, if you're going to get certain advantages, other papers are going to, you know, do the story, which is fair enough. That's what, you know, don't shoot the messenger. But I find it all really hypocritical, them arriving on a private jet, costing God knows how much, how much, you know, 9,000 an hour or something. What is, I don't know. This is a guy who's an eco warrior telling everyone else, you know, not to fly, and here he is flying on a private jet to Birmingham. It's just, you know, it's whoever. I mean, these people are beyond advising, but you know, that's not a great look, is it? Particularly when I think the Wales kids and they flew up on a budget airline. You know, I know that's a bit of a gimmick as well in a way, but you know, you just play the game a little bit. You know, this is an eco warrior that lectures everybody else about how to behave and just flies in on a private jet.
And he's a representative of a travel company, an eco travel company in California that promotes the idea of ethical travel, you know, how to get around the world without damaging the environment. And not high on their list of priority travel methods is private jets. Private jets are the worst possible damagers of the environment.
But it's just an opening gambit, isn't it? Yeah. Isn't it, really, Kevin? I mean, I remember when Diana went solo, you know, at least she tried to give the impression that she was doing it the right way. She booked economy, but I mean, British Airways then logged, you know, all the whole sections of the whole economy bubble off for her. But the reality was, it was, you know, at least though she was trying to give that impression. Harry's just cocking the snook. I mean, and I think as it's easy for people to advise the half in, half out thing still stands. There's been no official statements from the palace. Anything that's been done has been done in whispers and WhatsApps and deniability, not a source, not a palace source. You know, it's time really to put out a statement and say, no, they are definitely not doing this. We're sticking to the San Germain Summit agreement, which was laid out by Her Late Majesty Elizabeth II. There's no double dealing going on here. We're sticking to it. But how can they stick to it in a country where you're going to have two? You know, these two are not going to be quiet. They're going to be in. We're going to get them all the time feeding newspapers. You don't have a press and publicity director if you're not going to start feeding stories out there, which he has been doing. So, you know, we're now hearing that Harry wants him to play rugby, not, you know.
Well, yeah. Why does this? I want to ask you about this. You know, the national sport in winter, if you like, is football. It's our national sport. Yeah. So he says, "Oh, well, I'm going to be a full-time dad, and I'm going to go to all of his rugby matches." Why rugby? Why can't he play football?
Well, one of the things I think, and I'm not pushing it too far, is that William is such a passionate football fan, Aston Villa fan, goes to the games, takes his sons to the football matches, and is the big boss of the FA. So, you know, Harry, before he was left, was involved in England rugby. Maybe he's trying to sort of angle that for himself as well. We're seeing, but this is all too fast and all too coordinated for my liking. I mean, we're led to believe this has all happened, you know, on a whim. On a whim and a prayer, as they say. But it hasn't, has it? I mean, the King was told what? A few days ago.
We're told last Sunday. I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
That. I mean, the fact is,
nor am I.
You've now got privy councillors like Lord Blunkett, ex-Home Secretary, Dame Emily Thornberry saying that Harry's a hero. Well, there's a lot of heroes. He served, and he served well, but there are in that case, there's a lot of heroes.
Exactly right. Exactly right. He did his duty.
And they all don't get protection. And Lord Blunkett is turning around and saying, well, he can get a little, you know, there's a way around it. You know, both privy councillors who've sworn allegiance to the King, you know, and I've got no problem with the King here. I think the King's been put between a rock and a hard place. Yeah. You got the Prime Minister saying it's a private matter. Mark my words, in a year's time, we would have paid for the security. It's all being moved towards that. There'll be maybe some fake incident that involves some alleged paparazzi or whatever, or some. But there'll be something that makes the draw. I'm absolutely sure that the bill will, which is huge, it's huge. £5
million quid a year. £5 million.
Which, even if you take into account all of those locked in pensions and all these things for police officers, and put a few hundred policemen on the streets of London and police officers on the streets of London, and maybe stop some of the violence that we're seeing on the streets from, people coming in from other countries on boats. Maybe it might help a few women walk the streets at night. I don't know. And able to get home without being fearful. But the reality is that's a lot of police officers.
Yeah.
A lot of police officers. You don't see them in certain parts of this country. So I think that we'll end up paying for the bill. I've no doubt about that.
We won't like that, Rob. We won't like that. We'll be furious. The people will be furious.
They are furious.
Don't
you
forget.
Have to read it.
You know this. The Princess Anne and Prince Edward and Sophie Wessex, all of them work very hard. Princess Anne's work rate is phenomenal. They don't get automatic gun guards with the police everywhere they go.
No, but when they're on duty, they do. But I think what's going to happen here is he's playing the business of being the king's second son. He's playing the fact he's fifth in line to the throne. His kids are sixth and seventh, and a royal prince and princesses. He's going to push hard on that. The late Queen wouldn't have had this. There's no way that the late Queen would have had him coming back. I think she would have said that any money that's going to be dripped to you or left to you is not coming to you if you start rocking,
rocking the boat,
rocking the boat before William's reign. It wouldn't have happened, I don't think.
And to go back to the basics, my theory, or reasonably well informed, is that they've got serious money problems, and they've come back to hand out the begging bowl to the king.
I don't know about. I mean, compared to say, Mr. and Mrs. Smith from Bolton, they haven't got any money problems at all. They live in,
or me.
They're keeping their house in Montecito. They've got a place in Portugal, and they're probably going to get a handout to pay for this place in Cotswold. Who knows? Because the king is one of the richest men in the world, and he can do what he likes with his second son. And let's face it, he doesn't have to worry about looking after his first son because he's going to be the king. His son's going to be the Duke of Cornwall. Millions of pounds are going to come in. So he's probably, aware, as living with cancer, that he's going to have to look after his son. The Queen had 70 years to sort out her extended family. He hasn't probably got that long. So he's going to do it. There's no doubt about it. But I think that it'll be done privately. But it just seems who shouts loudest he gets his own way. But Harry, you see, the problem you've got is bigger than all this. Is the institution itself.
Yeah.
It's turning in this institution into the Kardashians. It's part of an institution. It's part of our democratic process, and it's becoming farcical. We're talking about Harry and Meghan flying in on a private jet when actually there's people worried about their paying their heating bills.
Yeah.
And I think eventually people are going to get tired of this nonsense, and particularly the fake smiles and the fakeness of it all. But we're seeing the old establishment cranking into play here. We had an article in the Telegraph the other day. There's no doubt to me that reason why the Sussexes have targeted the Telegraph to feed the Telegraph as much information, not the Daily Mail, but they have to feed the Sun because they know the Sun is powerful, but they're feeding the established newspaper. One of the sort of things they said when they left, they couldn't abide with information all the time about what they're doing, because that will divide and rule. And that's what they're trying to achieve here. They are achieving it because, newspapers, Kevin, we've been in it long enough to know that if someone gives you a gift horse, you're not going to turn it down. It's a story. It's going to get traction. And you can't blame the journalists for doing that. I think that really, if they were thinking long and hard about it, they probably realise they're being played. But, that's the game. And, you were in showbiz long enough to know exactly how those games
course,
played.
Yeah. If it's a good story, you take it. But
you take the story. Don't shoot the messenger. And that's what's happening at the moment. People saying, "Oh, don't write about it." Well, don't be ridiculous. Of course, you're going to write about it.
Yeah.
The BBC, though, it's a funny one, really. They're coming out saying, "Oh, they've arrived privately," and you can almost see in that discussion I saw on the news just recently, they're talking about, they're a happy family. They're playing the same, they need their privacy. They're playing the old rule, the old style, the old establishment way that they get them to be veiled back into the royal family, and they're part of the system. I think within a year, Harry will be doing royal engagements. I think he'll have full-time royal job. I think after that, Meghan and Harry will get a job in, maybe doing acting. But I think Harry will be full-time back in the
Peace pact between Harry and William. What are the prospects of that?
You can't lean on William. William is his own man. I think that William. I don't believe there'll be all sitting around the table at Christmas. I think William will find a reason to have Christmas with the Middletons. Who could blame him? But the king. I think you can't change William's view. William was very badly let down by his brother. He may well see the bigger picture and say, Okay, I've got to embrace him, have him on the tent, on the inside rather than the outside. But, that could take a bit of time, because the biggest problem he's got with his brother is trust. He doesn't trust him. How does he know? Harry's hedging his bets. He's keeping Montecito. He's got a place in Portugal. He's putting the kids for however long in local schools. But can you trust him? Is he preparing for Spare 2? Is there another Netflix series coming?
I'll tell you what, I wouldn't trust Harry as far as I could throw him. Your book, The Windsor Legacy, is out at the moment. Rob, you were telling me the other night you're working on a new one. What's this one?
Yeah, that's going to be out in January. It's called A Crown Divided in Diana's Shadows, 30 years. Of course, it's Diana died, but it's looking at how I was around when she, knew Diana, along with, not many other journalists around of that age, really. But, it's a look at Diana's influence on the monarchy and how it's influencing these people now, 30 years down the line. And, of course, we're seeing it now. We have A Crown Divided in Diana's Shadow. Absolutely. Sounds like a great book. Meanwhile, folks, The Windsor Legacy on the shelves right now, available at all the usual Amazon bookshops and all that. Robert Jobson, thank you so much. That's the royal editor, Rob Jobson, old friend of mine. Right, let's go to break. When we come back for the rest of the show, we're going to take your phone calls. I'm going to read some of your messages. If we got any WhatsApp voice notes, I will play them. All of that still to come. Stay where you are.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Have we got a voice note? I think we have. Yeah, I don't know who it's from, but shall we just play it? Judy, is it? This is a voice note from Judy. Let's just play it and we'll work out what it's about, shall we?
All the problems facing this country, higher energy charges, we're being invaded by young men from over the channel, and London with its knife crime. And what does Burnham and Khan do? They show us they know how to stack shelves in Sainsbury's. Jolly good. Please give them both a job. I'm sure they could manage that, because they sure as hell can't run country.
Well, I think stacking shelves is an honourable job, and I don't think Andy Burnham and McFadden and Khan are up to it. They should find a job more at their level. Here's another voice note. This is from Johnny on our Undercover Migrant exclusive film.
I'm just wondering, do you think the Home Office would think that it was reckless if it were, let's say, a BBC reporter, for example, or maybe a Guardian journalist? Would it have been reckless? Or do you think it would have been brave and gallant and all that sort of thing? I know what my money's on.
Yeah, you're right, John. It would be the latter. Brave, excellent journalism. We appreciate, we're grateful to the BBC or the Guardian for their groundbreaking investigation, etc., etc. But it was talk, so we were reckless and dangerous, of course. Let's go to the phones. Let's talk to Alan in Aberdeen. Hi, Alan.
Yeah, hiya, Kevin.
You all right, mate? What was you talk about?
Okay, it's reference Burnham doing a the equivalent of an episode of Open All Hours, for God's sake.
What do you mean? the Sainsbury's visit?
Yeah, aye.
I'm not quite sure what the idea of it was. They all dressed up in Sainsbury's uniforms and started stacking shelves. I never did inquire what exactly they were doing there, but it gave Burnham a chance to sound off about energy prices, which he's doing nothing to bring down. And that was about it. I mean, it was just a good, rare chance, an enjoyable chance to catch him not in a bus garage. That doesn't happen often.
It's more fake bull dealing, putting up this fake false facade when nobody cares that he was there. We all know it's fake.
Yeah.
We want to see him on the beaches. We want to see him with the border force. We want to see him going to the areas that are flooded with the migrant camps. We want to see him on the beaches of France speaking to the French police. We want to see him. We don't want to see him in Ukraine giving away state.
No, we don't. I mean, look, did you get my point, Rob? This guy goes over to Ukraine. OK, all prime ministers do this. Oh, we love Zelensky. We love Ukraine. We're going to support you forevermore. Here's all of our money. Here's all of our weapons. We're used to that. But then he makes a big thing of saying, I'm handing this secret missile technology information to Zelensky so they can build weapons and attack Russia. Putin immediately goes, right, that makes Britain a legitimate wartime target. I just think he didn't need to do that, and by so doing, Burnham put the people of this country in danger. What was he thinking?
There's no two ways he has. And to give, I'm not being funny, but to give Ukraine secrets like that, I'm sorry, but they could fall easily into the wrong hands as well.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
Secret for a reason. It's kept between France and Britain and America for a very good reason.
Yeah.
Now we're going. Don't be surprised in the future if we've got one of our own missiles come back at us because somebody got the plan.
Yeah, exactly right. Look, my view on Ukraine is I reluctantly concede. We do have to help Zelensky. We do have to help Ukraine stop Putin's expansionism. But I get annoyed with all of these politicians, people like Burnham, who just espouse to us their almost religious devotion to this cause and expect us all to go, yeah, we love suffering. The cost of living crisis, never mind our struggle, hand all the money to the Ukraine. Yes, we totally back you. I don't totally back them, actually, and I don't think a lot of other people do either. It's a strange situation.
Well, I have been to Ukraine a couple of times myself. I covered the Ukraine, the Bucha massacre and stuff. So I'm a bit like you. I do support Ukraine. I think
I do too.
Need to, but not to the point that we're putting our own national security at risk as well.
Well, he put us at risk. With those plans, he put us at risk, and I don't know what the hell he was thinking. Alan, listen, great call as always. I've got to move on, though, but thank you very much. Alan in Aberdeen. Let's listen to a voice note still in Scotland. This is John in Glasgow on Andy Burnham.
Kev, I'm just watching your images of Burnham, McFadden and Sir Sadiq Khan with the Sainsbury's jackets on, stacking shelves. How condescending are these people? It absolutely makes me furious watching this, and they're laughing and joking while they do it. Now, these good people do this job, not them, obviously. The good normal staff do the job 9-10 hours a day for peanuts, and these people are turning up for a PR stunt. It makes me sick. That's how bad this country has got, Kevin.
I'm with you, Bob, with you all the way. Yeah, it's really, really bad optics, as they say in Westminster. Great call, mate. Thank you. That was John in Glasgow. Let's go to break, take some calls when we come back. Just got a quick message here from Bob. He says, Russia is weak now. After 4 years of war, there is no way they are going to attack a NATO country. Watch this space, Bob. Vladimir Putin, remember this, as Bob Dylan says, when you got nothing, you got nothing to lose. He might be ready to press the button. Seriously, there are serious fears that Russia is about to invade Poland, a NATO country. Then, hey-ho, welcome to World War III. So, Bob, don't be so sure. Let's go to break. Calls when we come back.
Go to Calais train station?
Yes, train station.
Okay. I was gripping it. It was brutal. Come on, guys! Ready, full fence, go on! And we're on the way over to UK.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
A few messages. Dave texts me, Kevin, if the UK had an air defence command like Israel in place, then yes, the world... yes, tell the world, but we haven't got one yet. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, well, that's one thing. But, you know, if you're going to hand over secret technology information about how to build a very, very dangerous missile to Zelensky to fire at Russia, why not just do it quietly? Why have you got to make a big thing about that? Putin turns around and says, right, I'm going to attack Britain. If he does, remember this. If we get attacked by Russia, remember... it's Burnham's fault. Right, here's one from Brian. Good afternoon, Kev. I wonder if Russia attacks the UK, will NATO act under Article 6 or do nothing? I think they'll have to act. So, yeah, if a NATO country is attacked, as in Poland, all NATO countries have to respond. So, as Gerald Howarth just said to us half an hour or so ago, if Putin invades Poland, then we've got World War III. And I don't think it's that far off at the moment. It really isn't. American envoys flying into Moscow to discuss, apparently, this potential invasion of Poland by Russia. This is Bob. Bob says, I was just listening to PM on the BBC. What's that? They were analysing the seats on Thames Link trains. Who cares? No migrant stories as usual. Well, Bob, if you make the mistake of tuning into the BBC, you're going to get Thames Link train stories. Tune in to Talk, you'll get the stories that interest you, the stories that concern you. This is Dave. I would argue with you on your terminology. You say these BBC fat cats earn six-figure salaries. I think you should replace earn with receive or take. I absolutely, Dave. Absolutely, I'm with you. You're quite right to pull me up on that. Many of these executives don't do a whole lot for their 200 grand a year salaries. Everybody knows that. There are way too many extremely highly paid executives at the state broadcaster, and yet they continue to hire hundreds of them at great expense. It's ridiculous. This is Sean. I've just been in the Lake District. There is zero evidence of a climate crisis up there, as everywhere is green and lush. A bit far from North London, though, isn't it? That's Sean from Bridlington. And a quick one from Francis. Afternoon, Kev. I think Meghan Markle must be the only actress to return to acting by leaving Hollywood. That's Francis in Lanelli. That's exactly what I said, Francis. You know, that well-trodden path of actresses. You're in Hollywood. I'm in Hollywood. I need a break in acting, so I'm going to move to the Cotswolds. Yeah, right. She's not coming here to act. Even if she is, that's not the reason they're coming back. Shall we go back to the phones? Let's talk to Tarquin in London. Hi, Tarquin.
Kevin, still the best show on radio.
Thank you very much. That's why I got you on.
No, surely not.
Like Ukraine. You want to talk about Ukraine?
I totally agree with you, Kevin. I think there was no need for Burnham to grandstand and broadcast this bit of what I would say was rather, secret or, covert information. He didn't need to do that. Why did he do it? It didn't make sense. I mean, well, it does. I think he possibly, if there were a motive, he was broadcasting his Fabian communist globalist credentials to his brethren to say, give me a great book deal and a book tour after I've left, please, guys. I want to you guys.
Well, I think Tarquin is this. Andy Burnham is like all prime ministers of this country. The first thing, it's in the contract. You have to declare undying love for Ukraine. You have to go to Kiev and sort of kneel before Zelensky and tell them, forevermore, Britain will give you billions of pounds and loads of weapons, really, whatever it takes and all that. They all have to do this. I think it misunderstands the public mood. I think the public are getting a bit fed up at this, but you can't expect Westminster politicians to understand that. They're never in touch with the public. But handing over technological secrets and making a big thing about it, he just made us a target. Thank you.
It has. It has made us a target, and I'm concerned that there are two Britons. There's the corporate Britain of the defence contractors, and there's the other Britain of you, me, and us bill payers who are struggling with cost of living crisis.
Yeah, don't you find, I mean, as I keep stressing, it's a sort of difficult tightrope I walk, but I do understand that we have to help Zelensky, we have to help Ukraine stand up to Russia, otherwise, expansionism by Putin will continue. It looks like it might do anyway. It might invade Poland fairly soon. That notwithstanding, so we have to help them. But this assumption by Burnham, Starmer, all these politicians in Westminster, with their little badges, their Ukraine badges, while they give their interviews on telly, that we're all foursquare. Yeah, I don't mind living in penury. I don't mind not being able to afford my energy bills. I don't mind starving because I can't afford food. As long as you give all my tax money to Ukraine, that'll keep me happy. It doesn't keep me happy, and it doesn't keep a lot of people in this country happy, and it would be nice if Burnham and the body politic in Westminster, the Westminster Bubble Gang, paid us the respect of understanding we are not foursquare behind this day-in, day-out giveaway to Kiev.
Right. Keep up the good work, Kev. You're doing a brilliant job, mate. Crack on.
Thank you, Tarquin. Always good to talk to you. Let's go to Bob in Ludlow. Hi, Bob. What would you like to say?
Hi, Kevin. How are you?
I'm all right.
Good. Yeah, I'm phoning up about the Ukraine thing. I mean, I'm a former soldier. On the basis of giving money to Ukraine to help fight Russia, etc., and the plans for the missiles, I agree with what he did. I don't agree with the way he did it.
Yeah, exactly. I've no objection to that kind of help. But why advertise it? What's that about?
It's this virtue signalling thing with Labour, isn't it? And the Lib Dems and the Greens and all the rest of them. But basically, at the moment, we are actually involved with a quiet Cold War with Russia through cyber attacks and one thing and another. Now, at the moment, we're fighting a war with Russia on the cheap, and Ukraine is bearing the brunt of that war. In a hot war.
Yeah.
Now, if Russia decides to go for Poland, that would probably be the most stupid thing they could do, because at the end of the day, if Putin thinks he's got a bloody nose from Ukraine at the moment, what he'll get from Poland is beyond belief. They're about one of the best trained armies and air forces in Europe now.
But also, Bob, if he invades Poland, that's a NATO country. That means that all NATO countries have to declare war on Russia. So if he does invade Poland, he'll know exactly what he's doing. He's starting World War III. You know, he is unpredictable, old Putin, to say the least. You know, most people say he's just about got his marbles, but he might be at the point where he's just saying, you know, when you got nothing to lose, let's just do it.
Well, the thing is, on that basis, he's probably, if he does do it, he'll probably hope that China and North Korea will pitch in.
God.
Now, I don't know that the Chinese would, to be honest, because even though the Chinese, again, communist dictatorship, etc., they're not stupid. No. North Korea will probably pitch in because they're already pitching in with Ukraine.
I think we can handle that, but if China get involved, China would definitely covertly be involved. China would be supplying Putin with as much help as it could. But it doesn't bear thinking about, and there are serious concerns he might be about to invade Poland. And as you know, Bob, the business of invading Poland has a really unfortunate history. It tends to lead to military escalation. Bob, very good point. Thank you for ringing. Thank you. Bob in Ludlow. And Peter Carbo's in the studio. Hello, mate.
Hi, Kevin. How are you doing?
I'm all right. It was about this time last week, just literally as I was, last night as I was walking out of the studio, it was announced that Dolly Parton had died.
Yeah, have you seen the Coldstream Guards playing 9 to 5?
Have
it's
they?
Absolutely brilliant. It's really, really
one
good.
of the only 2 films in my entire life I've walked out of. But that's,
really? You walked out of 9 to 5?
9 to 5. Hated it.
Well,
but it's not Dolly's fault, everybody.
It's an iconic song anyway, and the Coldstream Guards have been playing it. Yes, exactly. Yeah. We'll be talking about whether a house fire is linked to the gangland revenge attack on the 5 joyriders killed in the A66 crash. We'll be talking about the cost of number 10 North as well. Nearly 50 grand to set it up, 10.5 grand on branding, £1,800 on